Chapter 1266. You don't have the bloodline of the dragon race, but you have the power of the dragon race. The voice chuckled. Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Although Tianyang had absorbed a large amount of dragon blood, he had only absorbed the essence of the energy and merged it with his 9 refined dragon body. He didn't have the bloodline of the dragon race at all. However, Tianyang had the power of the sage primordial spirit. Even a sage wouldn't be able to see through his body. Then, he could only be a great sage. The ancestral dragon godland has existed since countless years ago. Although there are many existences from the dragon clan who are willing to leave their treasures in the ancestral dragon godland after they die, those existences are thoroughly dead. So, you're just an artifact spirit. Don't pretend to be the Northern Frost Dragon King. Tianyang said indifferently. How could there be a living great sage in the ancestral dragon godland? For a sage, even if they were only left with a lingering will, they weren't really dead. They could still use all kinds of treasures to recover their souls. In the ancestral dragon godland, there were only ruins, tombs, and buried things left. How could there be a lingering will? What if I'm really the Northern Frost Dragon King? If a great sage is willing to live and be imprisoned in a secret realm that only opens once every few years, I have nothing to say. Tianyang said indifferently. This situation was either a trap or an artifact spirit playing trick. He had experienced many battles and had seen many of them. TSK. I didn't expect there to be someone as smart as you among the humans who came in this time. How boring. At this moment, the snow-white space around him suddenly changed. Tianyang realized that behind him was no longer the entrance to the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. Instead, it was a strange giant crystal. However, even if I'm the artifact spirit of this ruin, I can still unleash the power of a sage primordial spirit. Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you for being so disrespectful to me? In front of Tianyang, a figure of light slowly took shape. In the end, it suddenly formed into an old man in a blue and white robe. His eyebrows and hair were completely white, and there were 2 huge dragon horns on his head. Battle prowess of a saint? Try it if you dare. Tianyang said with a smile. I don't have the guts. TSK. Even the Northern Frost Dragon King didn't see a single primordial spirit saint. Who would have thought that a primordial spirit saint kid would appear 1,000,000 years after the Northern Frost Dragon King's death? However, even though I can't defeat you, it doesn't mean that you can defeat me. In these ruins, I am the only king. So, what's with the nonsense? Why are you looking for me? If you have something to say, just say it. Tianyang bluntly interrupted the artifact spirit's words. They were all saints, so why were they spouting nonsense? Hearing this, the artifact spirit, who was about to say a few more words to set off his image, was suddenly speechless. Young man, don't be so impatient. I asked you to come this time to give you a good fortune. If you have a good fortune, why don't you give it to me instead of the dragon race? Is there something wrong with your head? Tianyang still didn't hold back. Unless you've long wanted to rebel or you want me to do something for you, it's most likely the latter. So, just treat it as an exchange of benefits. Don't talk about fortune and whatnot. Hearing this, the dragon-horned old man almost couldn't control himself. His eyebrows twitched and the smile on his face froze. Fine, I do have something that I need your help with. In the end, the dragon-horned old man could only sigh and admit defeat. This trick had fooled who knew how many ignorant dragon clan used. Why was it so useless when it came to the heavenly sun realm? Of course, this was also related to Tianyang's primordial spirit saint strength. The strongest people who had come here before were only peak half-saints, infinitely close to saints at most. It was rare to see someone like Tianyang, who had stepped into the primordial spirit saint realm before the age of 3,000. The dragon-horned old man could see that Tianyang wasn't from the dragon race through the connection between the dragon race. He couldn't see through the power of Tianyang's primordial spirit to see Tianyang's strength. He thought that Tianyang was already 2,999 years old. Do you see this crystal? The dragon-horned old man said with a sigh. Tianyang nodded slightly and looked at the crystal. However, Tianyang's brows furrowed slightly at the sight of it. This crystal. Yes, it's a demon saint sealed in it, the dragon-horned old man said. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Don't tell me you want me to fight the great demon king alone? If you really say that, I'll turn around and leave without another word. You can find someone else. Tianyang knew his limits. Although he was already a primordial spirit saint, the crystal was able to make the artifact spirit of the Northern Frost Dragon King unable to do anything to it. Clearly, it wasn't easy to deal with. He didn't believe that the crystal only appeared after the Northern Frost Dragon King died. How could he deal with a demon saint that even the Northern Frost Dragon King couldn't do anything to? Of course not. Even I can't do it. How can you do it? Seeing that Tianyang was really going to leave, the dragon-horned old man panicked and said hurriedly, "But there's one thing you can do." Before the Northern Frost Dragon King died, he purposely placed me in this dog coin space to watch over the sealed demon saint. However, as time passed, the demon saint's seal was broken by waves of demon saints that broke into the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. Now, the seal's effect has weakened. Although the demon saint is only a saint, he's extremely difficult to deal with. The Northern Frost Dragon King purposely left him alive to guard the inheritance. In order to strengthen the seal, we have to obtain the inheritance. So, I can only ask for your help. Only if you obtain the inheritance of the Northern Frost Dragon King can you suppress the demon saint again. The dragon-horned old man said helplessly. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression became a little strange. Coincidentally, he had also entered the ruins of the Northern Frost Dragon King because of the treasures inside. So, what you want me to do is to obtain the inheritance of the Northern Frost Dragon King? Tianyang asked. Hearing this, the dragon-horned old man nodded. As for the reward, I will give you a map of the entire ancestral dragon godland. Although there will be changes to the ancestral dragon godland, there won't be too big of a change. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes lit up. A map of the entire ancestral dragon godland. That was much better than the map in the hands of the dragon tribe of the Azure Sea, which was only 1/5 of the map. Deal. Tianyang smiled. The dragon-horned old man chuckled. Then, good luck. In the next moment, a space energy covered Tianyang. Tianyang's figure disappeared instantly. The next time he appeared, he was already in the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled into a strange smile. Chapter 1267. Instantly, waves of extremely cold aura surged toward Tianyang. Heavenly Sun's expression instantly changed. The true flames of destruction immediately ignited, isolating the terrifying cold torrent outside. I didn't expect the Northern Frost Dragon King to make it so cold in his own palace. The fire dragons are probably weaker than the humans in the ancestral land of the dragon god. Tianyang chuckled. As a member of the human race, as long as he could isolate himself from the cold, he would be able to easily adapt to any environment. However, the flame dragon race's main attribute was fire, which was incompatible with this extremely cold aura. If they came to the Northern Frost Dragon King's palace, they would be reduced to high-level half-saints, high-level half-saints to mid-level half-saints, and mid-level half-saints to low-level half-saints. However, the environment doesn't matter. The most important thing now is to find the Northern Frost Dragon King's treasure. Tianyang chuckled. His figure flashed as he released the power of his saint stage primordial spirit to search his surroundings. Inheritance? It should be very important. Since the demon saint couldn't get out in a short time, it was better to find other treasures first. If he couldn't find the inheritance and the treasure in the end, he would be a fool. On the other side, this is the Northern Frost Dragon King's relic. The snow-white young man looked around with an indifferent expression. That guy should be here too. Then, the snow-white young man suddenly flew into the air, and flew toward a certain direction. The relic was like a huge palace. There were many paths that extended in all directions. No one knew where each path led to. Therefore, everyone could only rely on guesses. No one knew if it was a coincidence. If Tianyang and the snow-white young man didn't change directions, they would meet in the end. Damn it! Where is this? The Sea Dragon Tribes group split up the moment they entered. The 5 people who had gathered together with great difficulty split up again as soon as they entered. Fortunately, the weakest of the Sea Dragon Tribes group was a mid-level half-saint. They didn't have to worry about the safety of the 4 people. However, the peak half-saint of the Sea Dragon race looked extremely gloomy. Just like how the Azure Sea Dragon tribe was unable to fully explore the ancestral land of the dragon gods, they were also unable to fully explore the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. The peak half-step saint of the Ocean Dragon race had landed in an area where there were no records at all. If I had known earlier, I would have given them the map as well. If they had also found it, more or less, they would have had a greater chance. The peak half-saint of the Sea Dragon race looked terrible. Beside him, there was a flash of light. A stern-looking young man from the dragon tribe appeared not far away. Hai Yuanxiong. She's also in the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins? At this moment, that person's expression changed drastically when he saw the peak half-step saint of the Azure Sea Dragon clan. His figure flashed, and he fled in panic. The peak half-saint of the Sea Dragon race looked awful too. Originally, he had wanted to interrogate that person to see if he knew where this place was. I don't care. I'll just walk around. Sooner or later, I'll be done. The peak half-saint of the Sea Dragon race had an awful look on his face. He chose a tunnel at random and charged in. This aura, relying on the power of his nascent soul, Tianyang was able to detect any treasures that appeared around him as he flew. Therefore, Tianyang noticed a beautiful ice lotus emitting an icy aura not far away in an instant. Arctic ice lotus. Tianyang's lips curled into a smile. This kind of treasure was a great supplement for Ling Yuhan. It was as useful as a holy item for Ling Yuhan to cultivate the 9 Nether Frost technique. What Tianyang didn't notice was that the snow-white young man had discovered the Arctic ice lotus with him. Seeing the Arctic ice lotus, the snow-white young man's indifferent eyes were filled with endless complicated emotions. If I were to gift this Arctic ice lotus to her, she would probably be very happy. In the next moment, the snow-white young man sped up. At the same time, Tianyang used the Heaven's Expanse 9 transformations. Someone's here. Tianyang was the first to notice the snow-white young man's presence. His expression changed slightly, and he charged toward the Arctic ice lotus. A few seconds later, the snow-white young man also saw Tianyang. The expression on his face instantly changed. In the next moment, he gave up on the Arctic ice lotus and charged toward Tianyang. Snow God's heaven-sealing seal. The snow-white young man roared. His peak half-saint's true yuan circulated rapidly. The mysterious seal between his eyebrows also released rays of light. In the next moment, an extremely terrifying seal shot toward Tianyang. Tianyang's expression also changed. He hadn't even attacked this fellow, and this fellow had already made the first move to gain the upper hand? If that was the case, then don't blame him for not showing mercy. He raised the great void sword embryo in his hand, and an extremely powerful sword aura was released. Sky Sword Technique, 4th Sword, Firmament. Boom! A sword light that seemed to be above the firmament shot out and collided with the snow god's heaven-sealing seal. Boom! In an instant, extremely powerful rays of light were released, and energy ripples spread wildly. Tianyang didn't move at all, and the snow-white young man instantly retreated. However, Tianyang was also slightly stunned. This aura, Jiang Shuling? Tianyang wasn't unfamiliar with Jiang Shuling. After all, she was the person who almost made him a cuckold. Tianyang couldn't be unfamiliar with her even if he wanted to. However, he didn't expect Jiang Shuling to appear in the Northern Frost Dragon King's relics. Moreover, she was so much stronger. It's been a long time, Tianyang. At this moment, Jiang Shuling also took off the mask on her face. Her emotionless eyes towards the peak half-saint of the sea dragon race suddenly filled with emotions. It was because of Tianyang that she had decided to enter the Snow God's legacy. It was because of Tianyang that Jiang Shuling had survived the terrifying Snow God's legacy trial, obtained the Snow God's power, and became the Snow God's son of God. It could be said that Tianyang had made her stronger. Now, Jiang Shuling wanted to defeat Tianyang with her own hands. It's indeed been a long time. After confirming that it was Jiang Shuling, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. He glanced at the Arctic ice lotus and smiled. You want the Arctic ice lotus too? That's right. Jiang Shuling nodded. At this moment, Tianyang smiled faintly. If it was something else, I might have given it to you on account of how I've caused your Snow Sky Fox clan to suffer a great loss. However, this frigid ice lotus is my gift to you, Han. I can't give it to you. Tianyang smiled and said. Jiang Shuling's lips curled up when she heard that. I happen to agree with you. However, this Arctic ice lotus isn't important now. Jiang Shuling smiled. In the next moment, she disappeared instantly. Now, the most important thing is to defeat you. Witness the power of the Snow God. The power of the Snow God. Instantly, the seal in between Jiang Shuling's eyebrows released rays of Xinguang. Chapter 1268. Goddess Shui, Divine Power. Jiang Shuling roared, and the seal between her eyebrows shone brightly. Streaks of terrifying power bloomed from her body. In the next moment, Jiang Shuling felt as if she had become the master of this world. A heavy hammer suddenly appeared in her hand. God's authority, Jiang Shuling said coldly. In the next moment, there seemed to be some strange power attached to Jiang Shuling's body. In the next moment, Jiang Shuling's figure flashed and smashed towards Tianyang angrily. Boom! Tianyang used the vast expanse 9 changes and dodged instantly. He glanced at the heavy hammer beside him, and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. Since when did you use a hammer? This is Goddess Shui's authority. Jiang Shuling seemed to be enraged. She roared and swung the hammer again. At this moment, Tianyang's eyes became slightly serious. This hammer, although it looked like it still used true origin. However, Tianyang felt that there was a power that seemed to be fundamentally different from true origin. Deity? God? These 3 words flashed across Tianyang's mind. However, his figure was still unsatisfied. The great void sword embryo in his hand blazed brightly. Tao of life and death, opposite shore flower bloom. The massacre territory was instantly released. Jiang Shuling's heart trembled. It was as if she saw a beautiful blood-red flower slowly blooming beside a river of blood in a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. In the next moment, an incomparably fatal sword light attacked. Oh no! Jiang Shuling hurriedly retracted her heavy hammer. However, she was still sent flying by this sword light for dozens of meters before she stopped. At this moment, Tianyang frowned slightly and looked at the frost on his arm. Only then did he realize that the solid ice ground beneath his feet had unknowingly changed appearance. This is a little strange. Tianyang snorted coldly, and the true flames of destruction burned, instantly restoring everything around him to its original state. As expected, even if you don't use the power of a divine lord, you're not that easy to deal with. Looking at the true flames of destruction that wrapped around Tianyang's body like a fire snake, Jiang Shuling's eyes revealed a strong sense of fear. However, in front of the power of the gods, mortals will eventually die. In the next moment, Jiang Shuling's figure disappeared once again. The hammer in her hand was covered in layers of frost. Then, a hammer fell from the sky. Snow Goddess punish. Boom! Under the hammer, the sky was filled with a blizzard. Tianyang's expression did not change. Looking at the hammer that was falling on his head, he snorted coldly. The great void sword embryo in his hand suddenly shone with a black light that filled the sky. Cycle of life and death. The black and white sword seemed to rule the entire world. Everything went berserk in the face of life and destruction. As for the sword light, it shot towards the snowstorm in an extremely terrifying manner. Die! Jiang Shuling let out a furious roar. The giant hammer in her hand swung downward and collided with the cycle of life and destruction. Boom! A terrifying explosion took place. Cracks spread across the ice beneath Tianyang's feet. Meanwhile, Jiang Shuling spat out a mouthful of blood as the force of life and death surged into her body. Interesting. Seeing this, Tianyang frowned slightly. With a shake of his hands, the frost that had spread across his body unknowingly shattered again. He did not suffer any injuries. However, Jiang Shuling did not suffer any serious injuries either. How could a half-saint at the peak of the half-saint fight against him? I did not expect the snow goddess's punishment to not have much effect on you. Lord Yuan Divine Saint, you are indeed a Lord Yuan Divine Saint. Jiang Shuling also retreated rapidly. She stared at Tianyang with a deadly gaze. The giant hammer in her hand suddenly burned with a ball of flame. However, this flame was icy blue. Moreover, what it emitted was not the heat of a flame, but a terrifying chill. Fire of the snow goddess. Jiang Shuling snorted coldly. The seal in between her eyebrows shone brighter and brighter. Let the snow goddess purify you. In the next moment, Jiang Shuling seemed to have merged with the blizzard. Her figure suddenly disappeared. At this moment, Tianyang smiled faintly. Snow goddess? At most, you are a person who is stronger than me. You can be called a god just because I gave you a little power? Tianyang smiled slightly. The massacre domain was released. If the power of the snow goddess is this domain, then the so-called god is nothing more than this. Tianyang snorted coldly. On the great void sword embryo, a bloody light shone. In his eyes the immortal flame burned. In an instant, he discovered Jiang Shuling's location and stabbed out with his sword. Flying immortal sword. A terrifying sword beam instantly pierced through Jiang Shuling's defense and headed straight for Jiang Shuling's face. Break! Jiang Shuling swung her giant hammer and smashed the sword ray into pieces. Her face was filled with rage. How dare you insult the snow goddess? The seal in between her eyebrows shone brightly. Jiang Shuling's aura also suddenly changed. Originally, she was only a peak half-saint. However, after the seal shone, her aura rose steadily and actually leaped to the level of a saint. Feel the true power of a god. The snow goddess's cry. Jiang Shuling roared wildly. On the frost giant hammer in her hand, an icy blue flame burned. Everything around seemed to be shrouded in extreme cold. Tianyang's pupils shrank. A powerful hammer struck crossed the void and blasted towards him. Tianyang snorted coldly. The power of the primordial spirit was released. If this is your full strength, then I can only say, you, the son of the snow goddess, are only SOSO. In the next moment, a terrifying sword light that seemed to be able to destroy the heavens and earth erupted to the extreme in an instant. And Jiang Shuling's pupils instantly shrank to the size of a needle-tip. With the power of the primordial spirit as the foundation, the Tao of all creations as the fusion. 5 sacred Tao fusion. With one sword, all creations were destroyed. Boom! That hammer strike instantly exploded. The surrounding blizzard domain was also instantly broken. A terrifyingly powerful sword light also ruthlessly charged towards Jiang Shuling. How is this possible? Jiang Shuling looked at the sword light in disbelief. How could Tianyang be so strong? It was completely different from what he had shown at the Snow Sky Fox clan. Descent of the Snow Goddess. Jiang Shuling roared angrily. In an instant, an illusory figure suddenly formed above her head. It was as if it was hidden between the heavens and earth, appearing and disappearing. However, the divine power that spread from it seemed to be able to destroy the world. This was the power of the snow goddess. Tianyang raised his eyebrows, revealing a trace of surprise. This snow goddess, even if it was just an illusory figure, she displayed a power that was even stronger than the 9 universes' Saint Emperor. Could it be that the realm above the Saint Emperor is the realm that the snow goddess is in? Tianyang's expression instantly turned serious. A fatal sense of danger surfaced in his heart. If he allowed Jiang Shuling to complete this move, he would most likely die. In an instant, that beam of sword light sped up again, before the illusory figure of the snow goddess completely solidified. It broke and shattered. Before the strongest attack could be unleashed, it was broken. Jiang Shuling was instantly severely injured. She spat out a mouthful of blood and her entire body flew backward. However, breaking this attack also consumed all the power of the 10 creations' annihilation. In fact, Tianyang looked at his right arm. His entire arm was completely frozen. It was as if all connections with his body had been completely severed. If not for the fact that his shoulder could still be used, Tianyang would have thought that his arm was broken. Even the true flames of destruction could only slowly melt the ice. Is this the power of the snow goddess? Tianyang's expression turned serious. Chapter 1269. I didn't expect that even the snow god's son couldn't defeat you. Compared to Tianyang, whose hand was temporarily frozen, Jiang Shuling's situation was much worse. As the descent of the snow god was broken, all the true yuan in her body began to backfire. Although Jiang Shuling could withstand it, it was inevitable that she would be severely injured. The most serious injury was the snow god's seal between her eyebrows. The snow god's seal was much dimmer than it was in the previous battle. The last attack was broken, which also caused the snow god's seal's energy to be greatly depleted. If Jiang Shuling were to do it again, it was unknown whether she could use the blizzard realm. It's not bad for a peak half-saint to be able to freeze one of my hands, Tianyang said lightly. The true flames of destruction burned rapidly. At this moment, Tianyang's right arm had regained some feeling. However, what is a son of God? I remember that you weren't this strong a year ago. It's only been a year. Normal means can't be this strong. Tianyang frowned. A peak half-saint could only be crushed in front of Tianyang. However, Jiang Shuling could temporarily cripple one of his hands. This showed how powerful the snow god's son of God was. You don't know about the son of God? Jiang Shuling was stunned. It was as if Tianyang didn't know about the son of God. I don't know. What's wrong? Tianyang frowned slightly. He had never come across any information about the son of God before. Well, there's no god's inheritance in the Zhenlong sacred domain. It's natural that you don't know about the son of God. The red dragon saint usually wouldn't tell you about it. Jiang Shuling's lips curled into a smile. However, I don't need to explain. You'll know about it sooner or later when you enter the saint realm. The secret of this world. In the next moment, Jiang Shuling's figure suddenly disappeared. The one who spoke was only her afterimage. The real Jiang Shuling had already escaped. Tianyang's expression didn't change. If he wanted to chase, Jiang Shuling's trick wouldn't be able to stop his boundless 9 changes. However, he didn't want to chase. From the sound of it, there's the word divine. It shouldn't be a small matter. Tianyang muttered to himself, vast expanse Holy Spirit, do you know? Maybe, but I've been in this world for too long, and I've lost a lot of my memories. So, there's nothing I can do. Unlike before, this time, her tone was extremely solemn. Hearing this, Tianyang could only shrug his shoulders. This kid is just trying to be mysterious. Since you don't know, then forget it. If all the divine children are this powerful, it doesn't make a difference whether they know or not. Then, Tianyang looked at the Arctic ice lotus that was swaying gently in the breeze. As if sensing Tianyang's gaze, the Arctic ice lotus suddenly trembled. In the next moment, a huge snowstorm was set off. Treasures that had reached the level of the extreme cold ice lotus all had a high level of intelligence. Naturally, it knew what Tianyang was going to do next. Therefore, under the cover of the snowstorm, the Arctic ice lotus seemed to have grown legs and quickly escaped into the distance. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression didn't change. He smiled lightly. He could even beat up Jiang Shuling, who was a divine child of the snow god and a peak half-saint. He could even catch up with her easily. How could the Arctic ice lotus escape from him? He was overthinking. In the next moment, Tianyang's figure flashed. He tapped lightly on the air with the tip of his foot, and his body instantly shot out like a cannonball. This snowstorm couldn't stop Tianyang's powerful immortal eyes at all. In the blink of an eye, Tianyang was already beside the Arctic ice lotus. Ing. At this moment, the Arctic ice lotus suddenly opened its mouth. However, it didn't seem to be able to speak. It could only repeat the same syllable. This flower can even make sounds. Seeing this, Tianyang was stunned, but he didn't care. At this moment, the Arctic ice lotus saw that Tianyang was relaxed. Its figure flashed, and in a flash of silver light, it actually escaped a few hundred meters away again. However, although Tianyang was a little surprised, he only chuckled lightly. He took another step forward and easily caught up with it. "Little guy, just listen to me." Tianyang chuckled. In the next moment, he reached out his hand. He grabbed the Arctic ice lotus in his hand. Ing. Seeing this, the Arctic ice lotus suddenly screamed. However, seeing the true flames of destruction burning on the back of Tianyang's hand, it was so scared that it instantly retracted all its branches and leaves. It was afraid that it would be contaminated by the true flames of destruction and burn itself to ashes. If the true flames of destruction hadn't swallowed the lava fire spirit, the Arctic ice lotus might not be afraid of it. After all, the Arctic ice lotus was also a divine artifact. However, Tianyang had swallowed the lava fire spirit and the true flames of destruction. He had stepped into the level of a quasi-rank 8 sacred flame. It would be easy for him to burn it to ashes. "Don't worry, I won't kill you all." Seeing this, Tianyang chuckled lightly and said. After Tianyang's continuous construction, the Vientiane Sky Ruins had become a super-spiritual herbal garden that was extremely rich in spiritual qi of heaven and earth. In terms of scale and foundation, it was many times more powerful than the Earth Emperor's spiritual herbal garden. No matter what, your roots will still be preserved. It was rare to come across such a good herb, so Tianyang wouldn't waste it. Most of the energy essence of the Arctic ice lotus was in the ice lotus. However, even if the ice lotus was plucked, as long as some of its roots were preserved, it could continue to grow. Hearing this, the Arctic ice lotus quieted down. It cried out a few times and let Tianyang keep it in the Vientiane Sky Ruins. Since it couldn't escape from Tianyang's hands, and it couldn't defeat Tianyang's true flames of destruction, it was better to be quiet. But where is the legacy of the Northern Frost Dragon King? The map in Hai Tian's hand only showed the ancestral land of the Dragon God. Although it showed the location of the Northern Frost Dragon King's relic, there was no map of the Northern Frost Dragon King's relic. Tianyang didn't even know if he was at the edge or the center. He could only guess if he wanted to deduce the location of the Northern Frost Dragon King's relic. Forget it, let's continue searching. Speaking of which, Yuhan still doesn't have a good sword to use. Tianyang muttered and then rushed out again. The sword that Ling Yuhan was using was only a supreme-grade spiritual weapon. It was good for daily practice, but in a battle, it would break after a few hundred rounds. It was at least a supreme-grade half-saint weapon that could carry the 9 Nether Frost formula, the 9-tailed lunar fox bloodline, and the 9 Nether Saint body. Why are there so many people over there? Tianyang moved quickly. Suddenly, His primordial spirit sensed a large amount of vitality. At the same time, there were countless, murderous intents. Could it be a treasure? Chapter 1270. Streaks of terrifying fist winds wreaked havoc in the huge palace. On the other side, an extremely handsome man's expression was extremely ugly. It was as if he had used all of his strength to block all of the attacks. Hai Yuanxiong, you have the time to fight me here, but you don't have the time to look for the treasures you need? Opposite her, the man who exuded the powerful aura of a peak half-saint sneered. Treasures? Does the dragon tribe of the Azure Sea lack treasures? The only thing I need in this Northern Frost Dragon King's relics is the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance. The rest are nothing. Before the inheritance appears, fighting with a genius is what I want the most. So take this. 10,000 waves! Hai Yuanxiong roared, and terrifying ocean dragon power erupted. It was as if the endless sea water had formed a terrifying wall of blades. In the next moment, the handsome man's expression turned ugly. This guy was a martial arts maniac. However, he wasn't slow either. Dragon chi erupted from his body, and he charged toward Hai Yuanxiong. Good, I also want to see how strong the Sea Dragon Prince who dominates the Xiantian Sea is. Tyrannical Dragon Light. In an instant, an equally terrifying beam of light shot out from the handsome man's hands. It collided with the endless sea blades. However, to the handsome man's astonishment, his tyrannical dragon light couldn't break through Hai Yuanxiong's 10,000 waves. It was as if he wasn't facing a peak half-saint, but a real saint. The endless sea of blades seemed to contain 3 saint paths. 3 saint paths? You've finally taken that step? The handsome man cried out in shock. Hearing this, Hai Yuanxiong sneered and punched out again. In an instant, the tyrannical dragon light shattered, and the handsome man was sent flying by Hai Yuanxiong's powerful punch. Blood spurted from his mouth, but there was only horror in his eyes. 3 saint paths. A genius of this level was definitely the best in the entire Xiantian Great World. He didn't expect Hai Yuanxiong to take this step and achieve 3 saint paths. If word gets out, the entire Xiantian macro world will be shaken. The handsome man roared. At this time, Hai Yuanxiong suddenly stopped and looked at the ground with a surprised expression. Roar! The icy ground instantly exploded, emitting terrifying rays of light. Following this, a giant dragon made of ice burst out from the ground. Seeing that, Hai Yuanxiong revealed a look of disbelief. The huge commotion instantly attracted the attention of the hundreds of people who had entered the ruins of the Northern Frost Dragon King. When Tianyang arrived, at the place where the ice dragon appeared, no less than 200 people had already gathered. All of them were at least beginner half-saint. Some Wu Zun at the peak didn't dare to get close, but they didn't want to leave either. That said, the ice dragon was still circling in the sky and attacking non-stop. However, not a single one of the 200 people dared to capture it, because below the ice dragon stood a man. She was Hai Yuanxiong, a peak half-saint of the Azure Sea Dragon clan. Sea Dragon Prince, why is he here? The Azure Sea Dragon tribe has a great saint. He is also the descendant of the Azure Sea Dragon Emperor. The Northern Frost Dragon King is only a great saint. Why is he here? At this time, someone spoke in a low voice with a look of dissatisfaction. Tianyang, on the other hand, looked at the ice dragon circling in the sky with a look of astonishment in his eyes. He cultivated the Saint Stage Sword Dao, so he was very sensitive to all kinds of swords. The ice dragon looked like a giant ice dragon, but Tianyang could tell at a glance that it was surrounded by boundless sword chi. The undying flame burned quietly in his eyes. At the core of the ice dragon, the dragon-shaped longsword shone brightly. Whatever comes, comes. The ruins of the Northern Frost Dragon King are really a blessed place. The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled into a faint smile. He had been worried that Ling Yuhan didn't have a suitable sword, but now one was sent to him. It didn't look like an ordinary low-grade saint artifact. Half-step saint artifacts weren't divided into grades because of their low cultivation level. However, saint artifacts were different. Like spiritual artifacts and precious artifacts, they were divided into 4 grades: high, medium, low, and supreme. The saint artifacts that Tianyang had obtained from Saint Songqing's cave abode and other places in the Vientiane Sky ruins were mostly low-grade saint artifacts. They weren't useful to Tianyang and weren't suitable for Ling Yuhan either. Therefore, he threw them all to the Great Void Sword embryo to devour. After devouring so many saint artifacts, the Great Void Sword embryo was infinitely close to becoming a high-grade saint artifact. Based on this experience, Tianyang made a preliminary judgment. The Ice Dragon Sword was at least a middle-grade saint artifact. Not bad, not bad. However, Tianyang wasn't surprised. This was the ruins of a great saint from the Ice Dragon tribe, and the Dragon tribe loved to collect. It wasn't too surprising for a middle-grade saint artifact to appear. If you want this dragon, sure. I, Hai Yuanxiong, am not interested in this dragon. At this moment, Hai Yuanxiong, who was surrounded by 200 dragon demons, spoke indifferently. It was just a middle-grade saint artifact. He didn't use swords. The dragon tribe of the Azure Sea was rich and imposing. A middle-grade saint artifact couldn't arouse Hai Yuanxiong's interest. Rather than saying that he was guarding this place because he wanted the middle-grade saint artifact, he wanted to use it as a bait. He wanted to use this middle-grade saint artifact as bait to fish out some powerful geniuses and then fight with them. Those who can withstand 30 moves from me are qualified to fight for this saint artifact. Hai Yuanxiong said indifferently as if she was above everyone else. Seeing this, Tianyang frowned slightly. Everyone felt uncomfortable. However, a peak half-saint was definitely one of the strongest combat forces in the ancestral land of the dragon god. There were only a handful of them. Hai Yuanxiong had the right to be arrogant. It's just 30 moves. Let me, Wuan, see the strength of the Sea Dragon Prince. At this moment, someone finally couldn't hold back and rushed forward. A huge golden heavy sword appeared in his hand. Sky-breaking slash. Wuan roared and slashed at Hai Yuanxiong with his sword. Seeing this, Tianyang was also slightly moved. Wuan had comprehended the saint's stage sword Dao. Looking at his true essence, he was also a peak half-saint. The gap between him and a peak half-saint was not big. Countless people also showed a glimmer of hope. It wasn't impossible for such an existence to withstand 30 moves from Hai Yuanxiong. At this moment, Hai Yuanxiong chuckled. You are even weaker than that guy from the Tyrant Dragon tribe, who gave you the courage to attack me. The next moment, Hai Yuanxiong's movements were elegant as she raised her hand indifferently. She gently pushed toward the sword. Boom! There was a sound of an explosion. Wuan instantly spat out blood and flew backward like a kite with a broken string. Blood spurted out of his mouth. Even the golden sword was full of cracks. Who else? Hai Yuanxiong smiled and retracted her hand. For a moment. Chapter 1271. Dead silence. There was only dead silence. Hundreds of people, all of whom were at least at the peak of Wu Zun's power, seemed to have been silenced and fell into a strange silence. Not far away, Wuan stabbed his sword into the ground with both hands and tried to stand up. However, the golden sword suddenly shattered and he fell to the ground again. He was only able to hang on to his life because he was at the peak of the advanced half-saint level. This is Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. He was already an origin Saint Lord and had cultivated the Eternal Eye, which was a terrifying and powerful eye technique. He could see more from Hai Yuanxiong's previous attack. For example, the 3 saint paths. The path of killing, the path of destruction, and the path of the ocean. Of the 3 divine paths, 2 of them were the most powerful offensive paths. Even the path of the ocean was not that gentle. The 3 saint paths were also divided into levels. Although the Saint Path of Sword, Saint Path of Alchemy, and Saint Path of Formation were powerful, they were still far from Hai Yuanxiong's 3 Saint Paths. In Tianyang's impression, other than himself, only the great Lord of Heaven could compare to Hai Yuanxiong's 3 Saint Paths. However, although the great Lord of Heaven had cultivated 3 Saint Paths, he was extremely close to the 4th one. This was something that Hai Yuanxiong could not compare to. However, if Hai Yuanxiong were to fight the great Lord of Heaven in the ocean, she might have a chance of winning. The great Lord of Heaven was someone who had cultivated for hundreds of thousands of years. Hai Yuanxiong had cultivated for less than 3,000 years and was already so powerful. This showed how powerful Hai Yuanxiong was. 3 Saint Paths interesting. Tianyang clicked his tongue in admiration. Not everyone was like him. If one could cultivate 3 Saint Paths, one could expect to become a Saint Emperor in the future. At this moment, Hai Yuanxiong's face was filled with disappointment when she saw the fear on everyone's faces. No one dared to make a move. What? There are so many of you. Is there no one who is brave enough? You all are inferior to the people from the Tyrant Dragon clan. Hai Yuanxiong ridiculed without any trace of politeness. Hearing those words, the crowd clenched their teeth. However, they could only silently endure Hai Yuanxiong's ridicule. After all, what Hai Yuanxiong had said was the truth. Although Wuan was not a dragon, he was from the Great Baron Sword sect, a Great Baron Sword sect. His strength was considered top-notch among those present. Although there were those present who thought that they were stronger than Wuan, they were not that much stronger. Even Wuan was no match for Hai Yuanxiong. How could they go up? Asking for trouble was already a light punishment. Perhaps he might even be courting death. At this moment, Hai Yuanxiong suddenly sighed. This generation of dragons is really weak. Then, where is the Tianyang that the god's son of the snow god mentioned to me before, the one who could seriously injure him? At that moment, Hai Yuanxiong spoke. Hearing that, everyone was stunned. Son of the god of snow? Tianyang? I think, since this guy was able to injure the god's son of the snow god, he might be qualified to fight me. Hai Yuanxiong grinned, revealing her sharp fangs. Her eyes were filled with battle intent. Hearing that, everyone understood what he meant. Hai Yuanxiong was challenging a guy called Tianyang by name. The Sea Dragon Prince was challenging someone? Instantly, everyone was shocked. Tianyang was also stunned. Jiang Shuling had met Hai Yuanxiong? And she had set him up? Tianyang had originally planned to sneak away with the medium-grade sage artifact, the Dragon Sword. Now, it seemed that things were not that simple. I know. At that moment, someone spoke, his eyes filled with pride. That human. It is the Heavenly Sun. Hearing that, Tianyang was stunned. There was someone he knew in the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins? However, after taking a glance at it, Tianyang frowned. That person was from Banten Simun. Banten Simun was the strongest alchemy faction in the Eastern Sky Divine Prefecture. It was not strange that they had a spot to enter the ancestral dragon godland. However, he knew that he had caused a huge ruckus in the Snow Skyfox clan, but he still dared to come out and seek death? Was Banten Simun retarded? However, Tianyang did not know that when the news spread, the entire Banten Simun panicked. In the end, the upper echelons of Banten Simun unanimously agreed that it was just someone with the same name. Only then did they calm down. That guy thought that Tianyang was just someone who had been lucky enough not to be killed by He Yiming and could only kill the Medicine God Sect's Patriarch and the Medicine Demon Gu Saint, who had just broken out of their seal and had their combat strength greatly reduced. You're Tianyang? Hearing that, not only did he attract the attention of the surrounding people, but he also attracted Hai Yuanxiong's attention. Hai Yuanxiong released the power of her primordial spirit and checked Tianyang. She could not see anything about Tianyang at all. A faint smile appeared on her face. Not bad. Even I can't see through you. You're indeed qualified to be my opponent. In the next moment, Hai Yuanxiong's figure disappeared in an instant, and the Tao of slaughter erupted. A domineering and terrifying fist viciously flew toward Tianyang. Troublesome. Seeing that, Tianyang also knew that this battle could not be avoided. His expression turned ugly as he activated the fledgling form of the body of the Dragon Emperor. Rolling dragon power erupted from Tianyang's body like a great river. In the next moment, Tianyang showed no mercy and punched out. 9 Heavens Imperial Dragon Technique and Dragon Emperor Divine Fist. Boom! A terrifying explosion erupted, and both sides took several steps back at the same time. However, Tianyang only took 3 steps back, while Hai Yuanxiong took 9 steps back. Seeing that, countless people's faces were filled with shock. This person could actually fight Hai Yuanxiong head-on? He was not at a disadvantage? What a strong physical strength! Seeing that, Hai Yuanxiong's face also revealed a trace of shock. Tianyang's physical strength seemed to be inferior to hers. She had trained her body in the most dangerous and terrifying places in the Xiantian Sea since she was young. How could she be inferior to this skinny human? Then, let me see how strong your true Yuan is. Hai Yuanxiong laughed loudly and rushed out again. The true Yuan of a peak half-saint exploded. Sea Dragon Air Shattering Fist. A terrifying, oppressive aura burst forth. Instantly, countless people found it difficult to breathe. Tianyang frowned slightly and used the Divine Wilderness Heaven's spiritual art. Peak Wu Zun's true Yuan exploded. In the next moment, he and Hai Yuanxiong punched out again. However, this time, Hai Yuanxiong had a Holy Martial Realm Fist technique, while Tianyang only had a Heaven-rank Dragon Emperor Divine Fist. He was directly pushed back several steps by Hai Yuanxiong. At this moment, everyone was stunned. This true Yuan? Peak Wu Zun? Hai Yuanxiong was also stunned. Peak Wu Zun? Hai Yuanxiong said in disbelief, as if she had suffered a great humiliation. Peak Wu Zun? Hai Yuanxiong's face suddenly became ferocious and terrifying. Peak Wu Zun, an ant-like existence. Suddenly, a peak half-saint like her took him so seriously and challenged him. Hai Yuanxiong had the urge to tear Jiang Shuling apart. However, now Hai Yuanxiong's killing intent towards Tianyang was also violent. Peak Wu Zun trash, you think you're worthy of my attack? In the next moment, Hai Yuanxiong's face was ferocious as she roared angrily. The Tao of slaughter and the Tao of destruction exploded at the same time. Chapter 1272. Boom! Another loud explosion erupted from their bodies. Tianyang's expression changed instantly. With a cold snort, the fledgling stage of the body of the Dragon Emperor completely erupted. In terms of true Yuan, Tianyang's weakness was not ordinary. However, in terms of physical strength, Tianyang's advantage was also not ordinary. Tianyang's physical body had been tempered by countless dragons' blood. Even compared to Qi Yingtian and Jin Zhan, it was not weak at all. Although Hai Yuanxiong's physical strength was not bad, it was still far from Tianyang's. The two of them retreated again. However, this time, Tianyang finished adjusting in an instant and attacked again. At this time, the Great Void Sword embryo appeared in his hand. He slashed out with his sword. Sword breaking 9 desolates. Boom! Hai Yuanxiong was still in a state of shock after being repelled by Tianyang. She had not expected Tianyang to be able to counterattack so quickly. Her entire body froze, and all she could do was hastily condense a defensive barrier. However, although Tianyang's true Yuan was weak, his true Yuan attack was not weak at all. Boom! A terrifying explosion. This time, it was Hai Yuanxiong who was pushed back. Damn it! Hai Yuanxiong was furious at this moment. To challenge an ant at the peak of Wu Zun was already a great humiliation for the proud Sea Dragon Prince. Now, this peak Wu Zun actually took the initiative to attack Hai Yuanxiong and forced her to retreat. To Hai Yuanxiong, it was equivalent to being slapped in the face. 10,000 waves! Hai Yuanxiong roared furiously. In the next moment, countless blades formed by the sea dragon power shot out in an instant. They formed a terrifying rain of blades that filled the sky and shot towards the heavenly sun. Humph! Tianyang snorted and waved the great void sword embryo in his hand. In the next moment, Tianyang's right hand was like lightning. He waved the sword wildly, almost like a phantom, and blocked the endless sea dragon power blades. So fast! Seeing this, everyone was incomparably shocked. The speed of this sword attack was simply monstrous. From Hai Yuanxiong's eyes, she was able to see even more things. That guy, not only does he possess such a powerful physical body, but he also possesses such a powerful control over his physical body? Hai Yuanxiong was shocked. But at this time, Tianyang's figure flashed. With a cold snort, true essence erupted. Sword break, 9 desolations. The sword slashed down. Unlike when he clashed with Hai Yuanxiong before, this sword formed an extremely huge sword aura that shot towards Hai Yuanxiong along the ground. The countless blades were all destroyed in an instant. Oh no! Seeing this, Hai Yuanxiong's expression changed drastically. She didn't expect that Wu Zun, who was at the peak of Tianyang's cultivation, could unleash such a powerful attack. At that instant, his human-like body began to change. A layer of faint dragon scales appeared on his skin. His eyes turned from black to blue. 2 rays of destructive Xinguang suddenly burst out from his vertical pupils. The path of destruction. That's his second path. Seeing this, everyone who knew Hai Yuanxiong was shocked. Hai Yuanxiong usually only used the path of destruction against her enemies. Only when she met a worthy opponent would she use her second path of destruction. But now Wu Zun, who was at the peak of his cultivation, had forced Hai Yuanxiong into such a state. The path of destruction? Tianyang had encountered many people who cultivated the path of destruction. Each of them had extremely powerful attacks, especially the destructive power of the path of destruction. It was definitely the most difficult and terrifying power to deal with. However, Tianyang cultivated the path of life and destruction. He had personally entered the battlefield and comprehended the second path of destruction, the path of life and destruction. Reincarnation of life and destruction. Tianyang shouted and slashed out with his sword. The black and white sword light instantly shot out and collided with the pure black Xinguang of destruction. Boom! In an instant, even the stable space in the northern Frost Dragon King's ruins kept shaking. Some places even showed signs of collapsing. At this moment, Hai Yuanxiong spat out a mouthful of blood. Although the destruction of Xinguang was slow, it had been broken by Tianyang's reincarnation of life and destruction. How is this possible? Hai Yuanxiong screamed. It was fine that the path of destruction couldn't do anything to Tianyang, but even after using the path of destruction, it still couldn't defeat Tianyang? This guy was only at the peak of his cultivation, Wu Zun. If that's the case, seeing this, the blue in the depths of Hai Yuanxiong's eyes became even deeper. In the next moment, her 2 arms turned into dragon claws, and 2 dragon horns slowly appeared on her head. The royal bloodline of the Azure Sea Dragon tribe was unleashed. You are the first peak Wu Zun to force me to use all 3 of my paths. You are also the first peak Wu Zun to die under my 3 paths. Hai Yuanxiong roared angrily and attacked Tianyang. This claw seemed to have the power to destroy the world. Tsunami Dragon Sky. At this moment, Tianyang's expression changed slightly, and he revealed a slight smile. But you are not the first dragon to force me to use this move. In the next moment, the great void sword embryo in Tianyang's hand shone brightly. Since Hai Yuanxiong only used 3 paths, Tianyang wouldn't bully her. He also used 3 paths: the path of Sword of the Saint Realm, the path of life and destruction, and the path of boundless. Tianyang had stepped into the Origin Saint Realm, so he didn't need the path of all creations as a mediator to merge his paths. He directly chose the three strongest saint paths that he had comprehended. All creations. Destruction. He slashed out with his sword. The space that had persisted for so long finally shattered completely. Seeing this, the pupils of Hai Yuanxiong, who was charging over, instantly shrank to the size of a needle tip. Her face was full of horror. In the next moment, her claw attack that erupted with three paths at the same time was completely shattered by the terrifying sword light. As for the sword light, it was charging towards him with the same might as before. Boom! Hai Yuanxiong was directly sent flying by the sword light. On her chest, the sword light slashed open a ghastly wound that revealed her bones. Blood splattered out from the wound. And Hai Yuanxiong also knew that this was because Tianyang had held back. Otherwise, with the power of this sword, it was completely enough to split her in half. Thank you for showing mercy. Hai Yuanxiong struggled to stand up. She glanced at Tianyang and clasped her fist. In the next moment, she spat out a mouthful of blood and hurriedly fled. Jiang Shuling didn't lie to her. It was indeed Tianyang who had severely injured her. However, even if Hai Yuanxiong had imagined at the beginning, she had never expected Tianyang to be so strong. This human is so strong. Although Tianyang's deeds of wreaking havoc in the Snow Sky Fox clan were famous, it wasn't to the extent that the entire continent knew about it. Only some of the well-informed major forces and the neighboring forces of the spiritual state knew about it. Now, regardless of whether they knew about the previous deeds or not, now, everyone remembered a new young king. Chapter 1273. The Sea Dragon Prince, Hai Yuanxiong, was defeated. Furthermore, he had been beaten so badly that he had to look for his teeth on the ground. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Tianyang had definitely held back. Otherwise, even if Hai Yuanxiong didn't die, he would have been badly injured. No matter what, he wouldn't have had the strength to stand up. How could he have cupped his fists and talked to Tianyang? He even used an escape technique to escape. Of course, this didn't affect Tianyang much. After all, Hai Tian was courting death, but Hai Yuanxiong was gone. There was no hatred between Tianyang and Hai Yuanxiong. On the contrary, Hai Yuanxiong had stopped Hai Tian from attacking Huang Ck in the ancestral dragon ruins. Although getting rid of Hai Tian wasn't a big deal to Tianyang, Tianyang didn't have to worry about it. More or less, it had prevented Tianyang from exposing his strength too early. It could be considered a small favor. Now, sparing Hai Yuanxiong's life was as easy as lifting a finger. Of course, if Hai Yuanxiong knew that Tianyang had killed Hai Tian and wanted to avenge him, that would be a different story. Tianyang would kill those who deserved to be killed. He wouldn't hesitate. So, is there anyone who wants to fight with me for this ice dragon? Tianyang slowly walked under the ice dragon, looked around indifferently, and chuckled. Hearing this, everyone shook their heads and hurriedly retreated. Nonsense. Hai Yuanxiong was definitely the strongest person in the ancestral dragon god's land. Even he was easily defeated by Tianyang. How could they, who were weaker than Hai Yuanxiong, be a match for Tianyang? Although the treasure was good, one needed to be alive to take it. This heavenly sun, which power is this genius from? We definitely can't provoke this power. Everyone retreated and went to explore the ancestral dragon ruins. At this time, Tianyang smiled. Hey, Banten Simeon, did I say you could leave? That member of the Banten Simeon instantly trembled when he heard this, and then he erupted with the true essence of an initial stage half-saint and charged swiftly towards the distance. With the hatred between Tianyang and Banten Simeon, Tianyang would never let him go. However, in front of Tianyang, a beginner half-saint was nothing more than trash. No matter how fast this person ran, he was not as fast as Tianyang's true essence. Tianyang reached out and grabbed the man. Lord Tianyang, the Banten Simeon man, wanted to say something, but Tianyang's expression didn't change. He exerted a little force. The Banten Seaman man's body exploded, his blood splattering everywhere as he died. Tianyang didn't want to listen to any nonsense. If he didn't kill him when he had a grudge, would he keep him for the new year? At this time, the ice dragon seemed to have sensed something. It roared angrily and spat out a breath at Tianyang. It directly traveled through space, trying to escape. However, how could Tianyang let the ice dragon do as it wished? His figure flashed and dodged the breath. He grabbed the core of the ice dragon, the dragon sword, in his hand. Roar, roar, roar! The dragon sword continued to resist Tianyang's grip. However, Tianyang's expression didn't change at all. He chuckled and ignited the true flames of destruction. The dragon sword was frightened, and the frost dragon formed by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth instantly shattered, leaving behind the dragon sword's body. Listen to me and cooperate. Otherwise, I don't mind shattering your spiritual intelligence. Tianyang smiled and said. He was amiable to the extreme frost ice lotus, because there was a possibility that the extreme frost ice lotus could grow another extreme frost ice lotus. What was the use of the dragon sword's spiritual intelligence? It didn't even know how to judge the situation. It was even worse than the extreme frost ice lotus. The dragon sword could understand human language, and it instantly quieted down. Then, it was thrown into the Vientiane sky market by Tianyang. He was afraid that it would go berserk and destroy his treasure. However, the Vientiane sky market was under the protection of the Heaven's Expanse Temple. Who would dare to mess around in front of the Heaven's Expanse Temple? In the Heaven's Expanse Temple, there was a little girl with the body of a loli, and her mind was filled with violence. After communicating with the dragon sword, Tianyang found out that the dragon sword was called the Ice Spirit Dragon Sword, and it was indeed a middle-grade saint weapon. Next, I'll continue to search. However, the Northern Frost Dragon King is really magnanimous. He's already dead, but he still left the demon saint alive. Tianyang muttered to himself. His figure flashed, and he continued to move forward. With the primordial spirit of a saint realm expert, he could sense where there were treasures and where the treasures were stronger. Finally, I've found the last key. At this moment, in another part of the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins, Hai Yuanxiong dragged her injured body and sighed as she looked at the strange-looking gemstone in front of her. For this gemstone. No, it was not for this gemstone that she was severely injured. Hai Yuanxiong reached out her hand, and the other 6 strange-looking gemstones appeared in her hand. The 7 gemstones fit perfectly with each other. If they were mounted together, they would form a ferocious picture. It was the head of the Northern Frost Dragon King. At the same time, it was the key to unlocking the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance. Forget it. I'll find a place to recover for a few days. Tianyang beat me up even harder than he beat up the snow god's son. Hai Yuanxiong sighed. She did not have any ill feelings towards Tianyang. She looked around and saw that there was no one around. Then, she found a secluded place and set up a defensive formation before she began to heal herself. If Tianyang knew that he had to search for the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance for a few days because he had injured Hai Yuanxiong, who knew what kind of expression he would have. Congratulations to young Master Qi for breaking through to the advanced half-saint level. At the same time, in another corner of the ancestral dragon god's land, a deafening dragon roar resounded through the forest. A crimson dragon flame that seemed capable of burning the heavens lit up the night sky of the ancestral dragon god's land. Hee, thank you for going easy on me, Jinzhan. Qi Yingtian, who had just stepped into the advanced half-saint level after refining the blood essence of the great sage of the dragon race, chuckled. If Jinzhan had absorbed the blood essence of the great sage of the dragon race, he might have been able to step into the advanced half-saint level as well. This is the result of considering who would benefit the most. There's no need to thank me, Jinzhan said. Then, a smile appeared on his face. Now that Qi Yingtian has broken through to the advanced half-saint level, we can be considered a powerful force in the ancestral dragon god's land. Even if we encounter the vast sky dragon race again, we can still beat them to death. We have already wasted a few days for Qingtian's breakthrough. We have to find more treasures to make up for the time we wasted. Jin Zhan said. Qingtian nodded. The energy contained in the blood essence of the great sage of the dragon race is extremely vast. It might even be enough for me to break through to the peak of the half-saint level. Therefore, apart from the peak of the half-saint level, I can beat the rest. Qingtian laughed. Then, the group walked out of the cave. At this moment, a gust of sharp wind blew over. A cold snort suddenly sounded. You guys are from the true dragon's sacred domain, right? I didn't expect one of you to break through to the advanced half-saint level. Chapter 1274. Who are you? Qingtian's expression changed. He had just refined the blood essence of a great saint from the dragon clan, and his battle prowess was at its peak. However, he still felt a terrifying threat from the man and woman who had suddenly appeared in front of him. Even the peak half-saints of his clan couldn't make him feel this way. Where are you from? How dare you insult Tianyang? At that moment, Huang Yun snorted coldly. Qingtian had already become a high-level half-saint. In the ancestral land of the dragon god, they could do whatever they wanted, even if they couldn't. Did this unknown man and woman think they could suppress them just because they appeared out of nowhere? What a joke. Hearing this, the man's eyes immediately revealed a trace of coldness as he made his move. Huang Yun's expression changed drastically. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. Huang Yun! Qingtian roared and immediately rescued Huang Yun. However, Huang Yun was also seriously injured. He wouldn't be able to recover his battle prowess in a short time. We're not interested in you killing that trash, Xianyuan Kong. Wu Zun, who had to suppress his cultivation of 2 saint paths for so long, was killed. However, don't think that you can be arrogant in front of us just because we won't pursue the matter. The man who attacked said coldly. Qingtian's expression changed when he heard that. Xianyuan Kong? Did this mean that these 2 people were from the Xianyuan family? No wonder they gave him such a strong sense of threat. It turned out that they were peak half-saints of the Xianyuan family. If Hai Yuanqiong was an absolute top expert in the ancestral land of the dragon god, then the 2 peak half-saints of the Xianyuan family were definitely the strongest. Even though Qingtian had become a high-level half-saint and hadn't finished absorbing the blood essence of a great saint from the dragon clan, he still didn't have the confidence to stand in front of the 2 peak half-saints of the Xianyuan family. He had the confidence to save his life. I don't know where Big Brother Tianyang is. Qingtian didn't think for long. They really didn't know where Tianyang was. After all, the teleportation gate in the ancestral land of the dragon god was too mysterious. They were only able to teleport together through trickery and luck. It was indeed impossible for them to know where Heavenly Sun was after he had left. Hearing this, the man from the Xianyuan family frowned slightly, but he did not attack immediately. Before Tianyang entered, he was ambushed by a guy, so he attacked. It's normal that he didn't teleport with these ants. At that moment, the woman spoke indifferently. Hearing this, the man nodded slightly. But that also meant that this group of people really did not know where Tianyang was. Let's go then. The ancestral land of the dragon god is only so big. Sooner or later, that bastard Tianyang will be killed. The man from the Xianyuan family said indifferently. Then, he flew up into the air. The woman nodded slightly and followed him. As for Qingtian, he gritted his teeth as he watched the 2 of them disappear into the distance. He knew that the 2 of them had not killed all of them. Firstly, it was because Xianyuan Kong was truly nothing to them. The other was because they disdained. They disdained to kill them. Even when they attacked Huang Yun, it was just a casual action. They did not want to waste their strength on the true dragon's sacred domain. A great sense of humiliation appeared in Qingtian's heart, but he could only clench his fists and grit his teeth. He could not even stop them from harming Tianyang. In the ruins of the Northern Frost Dragon King. After 5 days, Tianyang did not find any of the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritances. On the other hand, he collected a lot of treasures along the way. Tianyang's hands were sore from all the treasures he had collected. If they were not useful, Tianyang would not even bother to look at them. Ice Spirit Dragon Sword, Ancient Frozen Sky Bell, Frosty Crystal Stone, Northern Baron Ancient Seal. Other than the first one, the others don't seem to be very useful. Tianyang counted the middle-grade saint artifacts he had obtained and cursed in his heart. Other than the Ice Spirit Dragon Sword, which he was going to give to Ling Yuhan, the others were just nourishment for the Great Void Sword embryo. However, because the Great Void Sword embryo needed a long time to devour the middle-grade saint artifacts, Tianyang did not let the Great Void Sword embryo devour them directly. On the other side, Hai Yuanxiong also withdrew the formation. Although there was still a considerable difference between his aura and Tianyang's aura, this small difference didn't have much of an impact on the outcome of the battle. Fortunately, I prepared the materials to use the secret technique in advance. Otherwise, I would not be able to recover so easily from Tianyang's injuries. Hai Yuanxiong said with lingering fear. If not for her foresight, she might have been seriously injured. In these 5 days, she might not even have recovered half of her strength. The 10,000 creations annihilation was too terrifying. Tianyang was worried that his true Yuan at the peak of Wu Zun might not be able to defeat Hai Yuanxiong head-on. He used his 3 strongest saint paths. The Saint Realm Sword Dao was already in the Great Saint Realm. The Tao of Life and Death was not far from the Saint Lord Realm. Although the Tao of Boundless had started late, with the Boundless Saint Spirit's guidance from time to time, his progress was incomparably fast. Now, the Boundless Tao was not far from the Life and Death Tao. With the 3 Saint Paths and the Great Void Sword embryo's power as a middle-grade saint artifact, Tianyang's control was not strong enough to kill Hai Yuanxiong. The Snow God's son should not have recovered. As for the Northern Frost Dragon King's relics, other than Tianyang and the Snow God's son, no one else can fight with me. Now, let's open the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance. Suddenly, 7 strangely shaped gems appeared in Hai Yuanxiong's hand. In the next moment, she activated her dragon power and merged the 7 gems together. Boom! The Northern Frost Dragon King's power, which belonged to the Dragon Tribe's supreme saint from millions of years ago in the northern wilderness desert, suddenly exploded. The momentum shook the entire Northern Frost Dragon King's relics. Tianyang, who was mumbling about whether he should continue searching, sensed the power the moment the 7 gems merged. He instantly discovered it. Jiang Shuling was also shocked. Like Tianyang, she quickly rushed toward the source of the power. The other cultivators were also a few seconds late. They also sensed the power of the inheritance. Finally, it's here. Hai Yuanxiong was excited as she stepped into the portal. The Supreme Saint's inheritance. Even among the Dragon Tribe in the Ocean Sea, it was not something that could be found easily. The power of the Supreme Saint. It seems like the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance has appeared. Tianyang moved quickly and used the Boundless 9 transformations. Soon, he saw the portal that was still open. Without hesitation, he rushed in. Then, Jiang Shuling also entered. After that, hundreds of cultivators rushed in crazily. Chapter 1275. A field of ice, a field of extreme cold. This was the scene in the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance. Tianyang glanced at his surroundings and his expression changed slightly. He noticed that there was someone not too far away. It was the Sea Dragon Prince, Hai Yuanxiong, whom he had defeated 5 days ago. Oh no! How did this guy get in so quickly? Hai Yuanxiong also noticed Tianyang. His expression changed drastically. He looked at Tianyang with an extremely ugly expression. The opponent he was most afraid of and worried about in this fight for the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance was Tianyang. Wu Zun, who was at his peak, could defeat him. It didn't matter if he used all his trump cards or secret technique. He was still a terrifying existence. Hai Yuanxiong wasn't afraid of Jiang Shuling. However, Tianyang was different. He really wanted to cower a little. A few minutes later, Jiang Shuling, who had an indifferent expression, also entered this space. However, her expression changed when she saw Tianyang. Just like Hai Yuanxiong, her expression changed. If this was the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance, they would have to fight for it with brute force. Then, the biggest opponent for them, or for everyone in the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance, would be Tianyang. Tianyang didn't realize it at all. Instead, he smiled and greeted Hai Yuanxiong. Although these two guys had a grudge against him, they still knew each other. But what is this Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance for? There's nothing here. After looking at Tianyang for a while, Hai Yuanxiong retracted his gaze. The 7 gemstones in his hand glowed faintly. It could be said that this was the only aspect where he could beat Tianyang. A few minutes later, more and more figures appeared in the space. When they saw Hai Yuanxiong, Tianyang, and Jiang Shuling, their expressions changed drastically. Jiang Shuling was still fine. She had been severely injured by Tianyang when she had just entered the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance. Only a few people knew how powerful this god's son was. However, Hai Yuanxiong and Tianyang were existences on the level of great demon kings that everyone clearly knew, especially Tianyang. With these two people fighting for the inheritance, it could be said that there was basically no chance for them. At this moment, the gem in Hai Yuanxiong's hand suddenly trembled. In the next moment, he was unable to control it, and it flew out of his hand, releasing rays of cold light. F***CK? Hai Yuanxiong was completely dumbfounded. What was going on? In the next moment, the spirit of the Northern Frost Dragon King's relic, the dragon-horned old man who had met Tianyang once and made a deal with Tianyang, slowly appeared. Then, he took the 7 gems. This person is... Some people had never seen the dragon-horned old man before. Their expressions changed as they stared at him. Northern Frost Dragon King. It can't be the Northern Frost Dragon King, someone said. The Northern Frost Dragon King died 1,000,000 years ago. This person should be an artifact spirit. That's right. I am the weapon spirit of the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. At this moment, the dragon-horned old man chuckled as the 7 gems in his hand flickered. Congratulations! You have finally gathered the 7 crystals of inheritance left behind by the Northern Frost Dragon King and arrived at this space of inheritance. The dragon-horned old man laughed. Hearing this, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Crystals of inheritance. Space of inheritance. It seemed like this was really where the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance was located. Then, how can we obtain the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance? Someone couldn't help but ask excitedly. This was the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance. A portion of the dragon tribe didn't even have a great sage or a great sage. Once they obtained the great sage's inheritance, they would most likely be able to receive the great sage Dao fruit. At the very least, they would be a great sage. Young people are always impatient. At this moment, the dragon-horned old man chuckled. In the next moment, the 7 crystals of inheritance suddenly emitted rays of light. In the next moment, the monotonous space of ice and snow suddenly changed. With the 7 crystals of inheritance as the core, a stone wall that was completely made of jade suddenly formed. Stone wall of inheritance? At this moment, someone revealed a shocked expression. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Stone walls of inheritance were usually used to record powerful secret technique. Compared to the jade slips of inheritance, it was comparable. However, the jade slips of inheritance could only be used by one person. On the other hand, The stone wall of inheritance could allow many people to comprehend it at the same time. That's right. The dragon-horned old man laughed. The Northern Frost Dragon King wants a successor who is stronger than everyone else in terms of combat strength. More importantly, the successor must have an extremely high comprehension ability and compatibility with his martial art. If you're cultivating the fire element, please leave. The fire dragons will definitely not be able to cultivate the Northern Frost Dragon King's martial art. Hearing this, a small portion of the dragon tribe instantly revealed a disappointed expression. They had originally come to try their luck. They didn't expect to be sentenced to death the moment they arrived. After that, this group of fire dragons left one after another. Out of the hundreds of people, dozens of them had disappeared. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but reveal a smile on their faces. In an instant, there were dozens of competitors left. Therefore, the first test is to comprehend the various martial arts and secret techniques that the Northern Frost Dragon King left behind on the stone wall of inheritance. There are sword techniques, saber techniques, fist techniques, and even primordial spirit secret techniques on it. Once you've comprehended to a certain level, you'll have to try and see if you can shatter this stone tablet. The dragon-horned old man waved his hand, and a pure black stone tablet suddenly broke out of the ice beside him. Someone recognized the material of the stone tablet, and a trace of shock appeared on his face. This is mysterious black stone? Even a peak sage-to-be might not be able to shatter a stone tablet made of this material. Mysterious black stone. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed. Everyone present was from a large faction or clan. Naturally, they all knew about the various treasures in the Xiantian Great World. Among them, the mysterious blackstone was one of them. The mysterious blackstone was a legendary material used to forge sacred weapons. It wasn't any weaker than the scarlet fire heavenly gold that Tianyang had obtained. Although the mysterious blackstone hadn't been forged into a sacred weapon, it was almost impossible to shatter it without the cultivation of a saint. It's naturally difficult. After all, no matter how high the compatibility is, you'll still need a certain level of strength to obtain the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance. Of course, this mysterious blackstone stone tablet has also been processed. As long as you cultivate the martial arts and secret techniques on the stone wall of inheritance, the attack power of this stone tablet will be increased. As for how much the increase will be, it depends on your comprehension level. The dragon-horned old man chuckled. Hearing this, everyone was relieved. At this moment, Hai Yuanxiong's body shook. She was the first to arrive in front of the stone wall of inheritance. As the person who has collected 7 crystals of inheritance, you can cultivate for 2 hours in advance. The dragon-horned old man smiled. Hearing this, Hai Yuanxiong was pleasantly surprised. Thank you. The surrounding people looked at Hai Yuanxiong with envy and jealousy. Hai Yuanxiong didn't dare to waste any time. She immediately sat cross-legged on the ground and began to chew seriously. Tianyang silently looked at the stone wall of inheritance and the mysterious blackstone tablet. His eyes shone brightly. No one knew what he was thinking about. The dragon-horned old man was full of smiles. He looked at the people in front of him with deep eyes. In the next moment, Hai Yuanxiong finished choosing and entered into a state of cultivation. Chapter 1276. 2 hours was not a long time to cultivate a martial skill that was at least a sacred martial skill. After 2 hours, Hai Yuanxiong was still immersed in her cultivation. At this moment, the crowd had already rushed over. However, Hai Yuanxiong was not stupid. She had set up a small array around her. Once someone touched the array, they would be repelled by it. Otherwise, Hai Yuanxiong would be depressed to death if she was interrupted by someone else after she had entered a state of comprehension with great difficulty. The 7 inheritance crystals represent 7 different martial skills? The inheritance stone wall seemed to have a magnifying effect. It magnified the information of the martial skills in the 7 inheritance crystals to the point where everyone could comprehend them. Tianyang did not need to get too close to see the 7 martial skills. The design of this test is strange. To break the stone wall, one must have a certain level of combat strength. However, the level of cultivation of the martial skill determines whether one can break the stone wall. The faster one comprehends the martial skill, the higher the compatibility. The deeper one comprehends the martial skill, the more talented one is. Breaking the stone wall means that one is not weak. A test that takes care of 3 aspects. This plan is not bad. Tianyang praised in his heart. However, his eyes did not slow down. There were 7 inheritance crystals. There were 6 martial skills and 1 primordial spirit secret skill. Towering ice sword, divine war saber, dragon soul palm, dragon king's unrivaled fist art, Beihan's spirit destroyer seal, and 1 primordial spirit secret skill, ice secret skill. The 7 martial skills and secret skills, if placed in the outside world, were all existences that could cause a bloodbath. Now, however, they were placed here for everyone to comprehend. Even if they could not obtain the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance, they could still comprehend a powerful martial skill. The Northern Frost Dragon King has put in a lot of effort. Tianyang smiled. Then, he started to choose seriously. He did not lack sword skills. He did not need saber skills. Among the 7 martial skills, only the Dragon King's unrivaled fist art, Beihan's spirit destroyer seal, and ice secret skill were suitable for him. As the cultivation of the 9 refined dragon body increases, the Dragon Emperor Divine Fist is becoming more and more useless. When I clash with Hai Yuanqiong, I will be forced back because of my martial skill. As for Essence Soul Mystic techniques, my power of Essence Soul has entered the Saint Realm. I need them very much. Just the divine stabbing saber alone isn't enough. Tianyang muttered to himself. Then, a smile appeared on his face. Only children make choices. I want them all. The Dragon King's unparalleled fist art and the Ice Soul secret technique were cultivated together. As for the Northern Frost Spirit Annihilation Seal, Tianyang did not really need it, so he might as well cultivate the 2 seals that he needed the most. At this moment, the power of Tianyang's Saint Stage Primordial Spirit was displayed. He could multitask and cultivate at the same time. As for Jiang Shuling, she pondered for a moment before choosing the Northern Frost Spirit Annihilation Seal. As for the others, Tianyang couldn't be bothered with them. After making his choice, Tianyang seemed to have fallen into a strange space. In front of him, 2 figures were repeating the same action. One of them released all his dragon power and threw a punch. Its power was unparalleled. One of them stood still on the spot. However, one could clearly feel that the power of Essence Soul on his body was surging and freezing the power of Essence Soul in front of him. The Dragon King's unparalleled fist art and the Ice Soul secret technique. Both of them were at the Saint Realm. Tianyang observed for a while and instantly felt that countless secrets were connected in his heart. He immediately began to cultivate seriously. This was the power of inheritance contained in the crystal of inheritance. Tianyang did not need to stare at a bunch of obscure words to comprehend. He could directly comprehend them on his own. In the next moment, Tianyang was immersed in cultivation. There was no time for cultivation. After a few days, Hai Yuanqiong, who was the first to start cultivating, suddenly opened her eyes. In the next moment, Hai Yuanqiong stood up and walked toward the mysterious black stone tablet. Hai Yuanqiong moved? Could it be that she has finished cultivating? Someone looked at Hai Yuanqiong, who was walking toward the mysterious black stone tablet, in shock. Hearing that, the surrounding people woke up and looked at Hai Yuanqiong. Before Hai Yuanqiong, there were people who had tried to break the tablet. However, the tablet was made of the mysterious black stone after all. How could it be broken so easily? In the end, those people could only continue to comprehend. However, Hai Yuanqiong, she was one of the strongest in the entire Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. Since she had already made a move, it was very likely that the mysterious black stone tablet would be broken. Tianyang opened his eyes and looked at Hai Yuanqiong. Then, he closed his eyes and continued to cultivate. The Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins were not that important to him. If Hai Yuanqiong could get it, he would let her have it. She was just a demon saint who had been sealed for 1,000,000 years. Tianyang might be able to defeat her. Dragon King's unparalleled fist technique. At this moment, Hai Yuanqiong arrived in front of the mysterious black stone tablet. She roared and threw a punch. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out. A dragon's roar was heard as if the Dragon King had descended. The punch landed on the arcane obsidian steel. The mysterious black stone tablet began to tremble and cracks began to appear on its surface. Everyone's hearts were in their mouths. Could it be that the mysterious black stone tablet was going to be broken just like that? It had only been 2 days since they started cultivating. That said, although the cracks had appeared, they didn't have enough strength to sustain them, and did not continue to spread. Hai Yuanqiong's face was filled with disappointment. Then, Hai Yuanqiong stopped and the cracks on the mysterious black stone tablet disappeared. There was no chance for the mysterious black stone tablet to take turns fighting it. But it's going to be over soon. Hai Yuanqiong's face was filled with excitement. This test was extremely suitable for her. In terms of combat, she would definitely not be able to defeat Tianyang. However, she had absolute confidence that she could defeat anyone in this test. Sigh, seeing this, someone sighed. Even Hai Yuanqiong could not break the mysterious black stone tablet? Then, they would most likely not be able to break it. At this moment, Jiang Shuling also moved. In a flash, she appeared in front of the mysterious black stone tablet. Beihan's Spirit Destroyer Seal. Jiang Shuling formed a seal with her hands. In between her eyebrows, the snow god seal shone with rays of light. In the next moment, a tyrannical and terrifying imprint flew towards the mysterious black stone tablet. Boom! A loud sound that was not any weaker than Hai Yuanqiong's attack was heard. The mysterious black stone tablet was instantly frozen. Its surface was covered with cracks. Is it going to break? Seeing this, everyone's hearts were in their mouths again. No one expected the snow god's son to make a move at this moment. Hai Yuanqiong was also shocked. However, a ray of black light shone from the mysterious black stone tablet. The cracks disappeared again. He still has a backup plan. Seeing this, everyone's faces were filled with shock. As for Jiang Shuling, she also sighed in disappointment. At this moment, Tianyang's eyebrows twitched. His eyes slowly opened. Dragon King's unparalleled fist technique, greater mastery. Chapter 1277. Dragon King's unrivaled fist technique, greater mastery. Ice Essence secret skill, greater mastery. Tianyang opened his eyes. There was a cold glint in his eyes. It was as if everything was going to be frozen. Tianyang did not expect that he would be able to cultivate these 2 saint martial artists to the saint martial artist realm in just 2 days. Of course, Tianyang did not think that it was because of his great talent. It was probably because the power of the saint state primordial spirit and his 9-tempered dragon body were extremely compatible with these 2 secret skills. Tianyang is also moving? At this moment, someone noticed that Tianyang had opened his eyes. They were all shocked. It had only been 10 minutes, and the 3 most powerful people in the Northern Frost Dragon King's relics were all awake and ready to make a move? If Hai Yuanqiong and Jiang Shuling were to make a move, no one would have any doubts about Tianyang's move. After all, Tianyang was the one who defeated Hai Yuanqiong in front of so many people. However, some people could not help but worry. Jiang Shuling had proven that the mysterious black stone tablet had a second layer of defense. Although Tianyang was stronger than the other 2, he was only Wu Zun at his peak. It would be difficult for him to break through the second layer of defense. Hai Yuanqiong did not succeed? Looking at the mysterious black stone tablet that was still standing in place, Tianyang revealed a look of surprise. He opened his eyes to take a look and thought that Hai Yuanqiong had succeeded. Hearing this, Hai Yuanqiong had a strange look on her face. Why did his words make people hate him so much? On the other hand, Jiang Shuling's expression did not change. She looked at Tianyang with a burning gaze. Both of them had already failed. If there was one person who had the highest chance of success, it would be Tianyang. Tianyang shrugged. Since Hai Yuanqiong and Jiang Shuling had failed, he was the only one left. Coincidentally, he had just mastered the Dragon King's unrivaled fist technique. It was not a bad idea to test the power of the mysterious black stone tablet. Is Tianyang going to make a move? At this moment, everyone woke up from their cultivation state and looked at Tianyang. Hai Yuanqiong and Jiang Shuling had not attracted this group of people. However, Tianyang's move had awakened everyone from their cultivation state. Seeing this scene, Hai Yuanqiong felt very upset. She had been the most dragon kings of the Dragon King's dragon tribe since she was young. However, in the ruins of the Northern Frost Dragon King, his radiance was completely overshadowed by the sun. At this moment, the hidden dragon-horned elder also looked at Tianyang with a smile on his face. In the next instant, Tianyang was unrivaled black stone technique. Body of the Dragon King body. Dragon force as vast as the sea erupted in an instant. Flames of dragon force burned in Tianyang's eyes. Dragon King's unrivaled fist technique. Unlike the Dragon King's divine fist technique, the Dragon King's unrivaled fist technique only had one sound. The Dragon King's roar. He punched out. Boom. The mysterious black stone tablet trembled, but strangely, there were no cracks on the surface of the tablet. Not bad. Tianyang withdrew his dragon power. His expression did not change. Seeing this, everyone was stunned. Not even a single crack could be seen? Tianyang, the most powerful of the three, could not even move the mysterious black stone tablet? Wu Zun is indeed Wu Zun at the peak. Although he can defeat Hai Yuanqiong in a real battle, his understanding of martial techniques is still far from that of a peak half-saint. That's true. He must have used some secret technique to defeat Hai Yuanqiong. Someone shook his head and sighed. He could not even move the mysterious black stone tablet. They would not admit that he was such a powerful person. Some people were even disappointed and looked down on him. Even some beginner half-saints could not compare with him. Tianyang, on the other hand, was indifferent. He turned around and left. He did not even look at the mysterious black stone tablet. Hai Yuanqiong and Jiang Shuling were also stunned. Could it be that the power of Wu Zun at the peak was really that weak? Boom. At this moment, a terrifying loud sound was heard. Everyone's pupils shrank. They hurriedly looked at the source of the loud sound. It was the mysterious black stone tablet. Boom. Following another loud explosion, the mystic obsidian boulder was blasted into pieces by a powerful force. The first layer of defense? The second layer of defense? Together, they were all blown to pieces. Countless people revealed expressions of shock when they saw this. The dragon-horned old man also revealed an extremely excited expression. He did not expect Tianyang to be so powerful. The inheritance is still his. Hai Yuanqiong and Jiang Shuling immediately revealed disappointed expressions when they saw this. At this moment, the dragon-horned old man floated down and laughed loudly. It seems that the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance already has an owner. Then, the dragon-horned elder waved his hand, and a space door appeared where the mysterious black stone tablet was originally. Now, enter the inheritance space and get the last inheritance. The dragon-horned elder laughed. At this moment, Hai Yuanqiong and Jiang Shuling spoke at the same time. Tianyang, I am willing to give you an upper sacred weapon. Can you let me get the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance? I am the deity. In the future, I will definitely be able to inherit the snow god's power. Tianyang, I can owe you a favor. Can you let me get the inheritance? Everyone was stunned. Why did Hai Yuanqiong and the snow god's deity want the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance? Was there something special about the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance? Tianyang was also taken aback. Then, his lips curled into a smile as he shook his head. There is no need. In the next moment, a black light flashed in his hand. The great void sword embryo appeared in his hand. Then, Tianyang's true core strength exploded. He released the sky firmament sword. Martial soul talent, devouring sky. Tianyang's cultivation aura instantly soared to the middle level of the half-saint realm. In the next moment, the Saint Realm Sword Way, the way of creation and destruction, the way of all things, the vast expanse way, the Saint Realm Formation Way, and the power of the Saint Realm Primordial Spirit. Nature Annihilation. Tianyang roared and slashed with his sword. His target was the Dragon-Horned Elder. What? The Dragon-Horned Elder was in disbelief. Hai Yuanqiong, Jiang Shuling, and the hundreds of people were stunned. Why did Tianyang attack the weapon spirit of the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance? Ah! The immortal fire burned on the sword radiance. At the same time, it also burned the Dragon-Horned Elder's body. The Dragon-Horned Elder screamed in agony. Half of his body was cut in half. His aura was greatly reduced. In the next moment, monstrous demonic chi exploded and filled the entire space. The remaining half of the Dragon-Horned Elder's face became hideous and terrifying. When did you find out? Chapter 1278. When did you recognize me? The old man with the dragon horn, who only had half of his body left, asked savagely. His eyes were filled with murderous intent as he looked at Tianyang. The monstrous demonic chi seemed to want to devour everyone. In an instant, some of the cultivators were invaded by the demonic chi. They spat out a mouthful of blood and were severely injured. The remaining cultivators woke up one after another. They screamed and ran frantically, trying to escape from this space. Hai Yuanqiong and Jiang Shuling were shocked and in disbelief. Tianyang smiled faintly. Not only did I recognize you as the great demon saint, but I also know that you didn't just give me the demonic chi. You even called everyone to your side and asked them to obtain the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance and kill the great demon saint, right? Tianyang said with a smile. Hearing this, the old man with the dragon horn was also shocked. Although I wouldn't call you a piece of trash like Wu Zun, I'm still surprised that you were able to guess this. The old man with the dragon horn maintained his horrified posture, with only half of his face remaining as he spoke to Tianyang. Just one look was enough to send chills down Hai Yuanqiong and Jiang Shuling's spines. You don't have to lie to me. I also know that the cultivators who entered the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance were only illusions. The entrance to the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance is actually a random teleportation. It's just that you've already prepared a formation on it. It's used to connect you and the entrance. In reality, you've only projected your image into the eyes of the people who entered. Otherwise, you could have devoured all of us in that space. Why are you spouting so much nonsense? Tianyang said with a smile. Hearing this, the old man with the dragon horn's face became even more ferocious. Impressive. You're really impressive. I didn't expect that the ant-like Wu Zun at the pinnacle would be able to guess this. However, I'm still curious. These are just your guesses. At most, you could guess that the weapon spirit of the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance had issued a mission to everyone. How did you guess that I'm the great demon saint? The dragon-horned elder said. He was in no hurry to attack. Although half of his body had been cut in half by Tianyang's sudden attack, he was still confident that he could kill everyone here. After all, he was a devil saint. Also, the weapon spirit can't leave this ruin. Did the Northern Frost Dragon King drink fake wine and lock the weapon spirit in this place? The only one who is truly locked up is that demon saint. Tianyang smiled. However, these were still his guesses. What really made him certain was, the moment the dragon-horned elder urged him to enter the spatial gate, Heavencloud's sword sensed the aura of the demon race. The heavenly sword was Tianyang's martial spirit, and it was the nemesis of countless demons. Between the heavenly sword and an artifact spirit of unknown origin, which one was more trustworthy? It seemed like he could insta-kill him. Interesting, this is really interesting. I didn't expect that an ant at the peak of Wu Zun could think so much. If you're from the Devil Clan, it shouldn't be a problem for you to reach the peak of the Sage Realm like me. However, you're from the Human Clan and you'll regret it. Why do you have to attack me at this moment? The dragon-horned elder's body changed instantly, and he turned into a hideous scaly monster. In the next moment, a terrifying demonic fire claw print attacked Tianyang. Originally, I only wanted to kill you. It's your greatest honor to die in the hands of me, Yin Shi. Go to hell. However, Tianyang's expression did not change, and he smiled indifferently. It seems like you still don't know your place. The true energy of the peak of the intermediate sage to be erupted, and Tianyang's sword struck out at lightning speed. Sword breaking 9 barons. The sword radiance swept out and instantly shattered the demonic fire claw print. At the same time, Tianyang used the heavenly expanse 9 changes, and his speed was extremely fast. In an instant, he was beside Yin Shi, and he struck out with his sword. Sky sword technique, firmament. Boom. The sword seemed to be able to split the sky, and it heavily struck Yin Shi's body. Yin Shi's body was instantly torn apart, but in the next moment it reassembled. It seemed like she did not suffer any serious injuries at all. She's a little difficult to deal with. Seeing this, Tianyang frowned slightly. Although the 10,000 mammoth annihilation had cut Yin Shi into 2 halves, it had only cut Yin Shi into 2 halves. Yin Shi had only lost some of her strength, but her origin was not damaged. If a sage had been hit by Tianyang's 6 Holy Paths fusion sword, he would have been severely injured, if not killed. Ah, it's useless. My body is still in the Northern Frost Dragon King's damned eyes. However, my demonic soul has already come out. What you're attacking is my demonic soul. Therefore, your attack has no effect on me, and I can easily kill you. Yin Shi laughed wildly, and Hai Yuanxiong roared angrily at this moment, and she threw a punch at Yin Shi. Damned guy. Thinking of how he had been completely fooled by this demon from the beginning to the end, the Sea Dragon Prince was furious. Sea Dragon Fist. This punch was imbued with absolute power. Hai Yuanxiong was confident that she could injure even a saint with this punch. However, before the punch landed on Yin Shi's body, it was shattered by Yin Shi's demonic fire claw print. A sea dragon at the peak of the half-saint realm dares to attack me. Who is at the peak of the sage realm? Yin Shi's face twisted abnormally, revealing a strong sense of disdain. My cultivation base, if converted to your realms, is equivalent to a saint lord. Monstrous demonic chi burst out. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed drastically. Sage. Sage. Suddenly, some people showed a look of despair and collapsed to the ground, while others were furious and cursed at Tianyang. Damn Tianyang! So what if you recognize me? Why did you attack me? Isn't it good to go in alone? Do you want us to die with you? It's fine if you want to die alone, but you want to drag us down with you. Quickly kill yourself and apologize to the Demon King. Someone roared and cursed. Hearing this, Yin Shi's face showed a trace of a hideous smile. Kid, look at how these humans are treating you. Why do you want to fight? At most, you and I will go our separate ways. I will devour these people, and you will take your inheritance. Why not? Yin Shi smiled. Although he was not afraid of Tianyang, he could tell from Tianyang's sudden 10,000 mammoth extinction. This kid's combat power was amazing, and he might have other means to injure him. Shi did not want to fight if he could avoid it. After all, fighting would also consume the power of his demonic soul. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Their faces were full of horror. No, Tianyang, you must not agree with him. The demon race is ambitious, and you can't trust their promises. Yes, this is all a scam to deceive you. His real purpose is to let your guard down and then kill you. Everyone shouted wildly. Hearing this, Shi frowned slightly. Noisy. He pointed his finger, and the people who spoke all spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. How is it? My proposal is good, right? Shi smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang pondered for a while and smiled gently. You've got one thing wrong. I've never attacked you for this group of people. It's for, a devilish glint flashed across Tianyang's eyes. Chapter 1279. I'll eat you. A sinister smile appeared on Tianyang's face as he said. In the next moment, his figure suddenly disappeared, and a sword light slashed toward Shi. Were these human clan cultivators dead or alive? What did it have to do with Tianyang? The reason why he exposed the Devil Saint was because he wanted to catch the Devil Saint off guard and devour him with the least amount of effort. As for what would happen to these human clan cultivators, Tianyang could only express his helplessness. After all, these human clan cultivators were of no value to Tianyang. Eat me. Shi's face froze when he heard this, as if he did not expect Tianyang to say such an answer. However, in the face of the sword light, his expression turned into one of mockery in an instant. Don't you learn your lesson? This kind of attack has little effect on me. It's completely useless. In the next moment, Shi suddenly attacked, and the demonic fire burned. However, Tianyang snorted coldly, and his expression remained unchanged. His majestic true core strength was added to the sword light. Under the sword light, the demonic fire was directly split apart. You have some skills, but what's the use of standing here and letting you slash me? Shi laughed out loud. When he saw that his counterattack was easily destroyed by Tianyang, his face was full of disdain. The previous powerful move did not do much to him, so what could a small sword move do to him? Boom! In an instant, the sword fell and cut Shi's body in half again. A ferocious smile appeared on Shi's face again. However, in the next moment the smile froze. Ah 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 ah! Horrifying scars appeared on the demonic soul. They were not the same scars as when Shi was cut in half by Tianyang's sword, but she did not suffer any injuries. Instead, it was an attack that really hurt the demonic soul. Primordial Spirit Secret Skill. You actually know Primordial Spirit Secret Skill? Shi shouted crazily. And it's the power of the Sage Primordial Spirit. The power of the Sage Primordial Spirit, Sage Lord. These few words were like a heavy hammer that heavily smashed into everyone's hearts. Previously, he had thought that Tianyang would be able to defeat Hai Yuanqiong, so he had already used all his strength. Who would have thought that Tianyang actually had the power of the Saint Realm Primordial Spirit as a trump card that he had yet to use? Now, Shi's demonic soul was severely injured by the unexpected attack. Essence Soul Mystic Technique, Soul-Piercing Saber. Damned human ant, how dare you hide your strength? Shi roared crazily, staring at Tianyang. In the next moment, the demonic soul's origin flame was released. Die! In the beginning, there was only a wisp of demonic fire. However, when it came into contact with the monstrous demonic chi in the air, this wisp instantly ignited all the demonic energy, turning everything in this space into a sea of demonic fire. Balrog Berserk Fire, incinerate the heavens! Shi roared crazily. At this moment, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Not only was this flame able to injure the physical body, it was also able to attack the Yuan spirit. Moreover, its attack power was not weak at all. How dare you attack me? Die! Shi roared angrily, forming a seal with both hands. the monstrous demonic fire immediately turned into a terrifying fire seal. The fire seal roared, broke through the space, and came directly in front of Tianyang. Once the Balrog fire seal is released, even the power of the Saint Realm primordial spirit won't be able to escape. Seeing this, Yin Shi's face instantly became ferocious. At this moment, Tianyang's expression did not change. Secret skill of Ice Soul. Streaks of terrifying icy power shot out from Tianyang's primordial spirit. It was like a breath of ice that could freeze everything, bombarding the Balrog fire seal. In an instant it was frozen. Tianyang's figure flashed, and the power of the Saint Realm primordial spirit was completely released. In just a moment, countless divine piercing swords were condensed. They turned into a rain of swords that shot toward Yin Shi violently. How is this possible? Seeing this, Yin Shi was stunned. What kind of secret skill is this? It can actually freeze my Balrog fire seal. In the next moment, Yin Shi suddenly came to her senses. Damn it! It's the secret skill of Ice Soul of the Northern Frost Dragon King. You actually cultivated the Dragon King's unparalleled fist skill and the secret skill of Ice Soul at the same time. In an instant, Yin Shi's figure disappeared on the spot. In front of the divine piercing swords, even a demon saint like Yin Shi dared not be careless. If one of them managed to hit Yin Shi, then the rest of the godly stabbing sabers would target the one that was hit and attack Yin Shi. Damn it! The power of Tianyang's primordial spirit was too vast, and the space was much smaller than that of the Snow Sky Fox clan. The smaller the space, the longer Tianyang's carpet bombing of the divine piercing swords could last. I can only use this move. Yin Shi roared, looking at the incoming divine piercing swords, and suddenly roared. Roar! The demonic sound rolled out in all directions like a huge wave that surged into the sky. Tianyang's divine piercing swords also stopped for a moment, and at this moment, Yin Shi burned his demonic soul and attacked Jiang Shuling. It's the smell of the divine sun. She can definitely be my best cauldron. Yin Shi laughed strangely and rushed into Jiang Shuling's body. Jiang Shuling's expression changed drastically, and she was just about to operate the power of the snow god. However, even though she was injured by Tianyang's divine piercing swords, Yin Shi's powerful primordial spirit was still not comparable to Jiang Shuling, who was only at the peak of the half-saint realm. In just a moment, Yin Shi took control of Jiang Shuling's body. In the next moment, he rushed toward the space door. As long as he controlled this body and broke the ice that sealed her body, Tianyang and Hai Yuanxiong would all die. However, Tianyang saw this and chuckled. Do you really think that I won't dare to attack you after taking control of Jiang Shuling's body? With Yin Shi's power, he could even take over Jiang Shuling's body directly, let alone seize control of the body for a period of time. However, Yin Shi was concerned about his original body, and did not care about Jiang Shuling at all. He did not merge with this body at all. Therefore, Tianyang took advantage of this opportunity. Do you think that Jiang Shuling's speed is faster than my Ice Soul secret skill? Tianyang chuckled again. In the next moment, Tianyang's primordial spirit suddenly trembled. Ice Soul secret skill, freeze. An invisible icy blue halo suddenly appeared in Tianyang's soul sea and spread in all directions. On the other hand, Jiang Shuling's body was like a statue, frozen on the spot. Everyone around, including Hai Yuanxiong, felt their minds slow down. Ice Soul freezing. Freezing primordial spirit. I've lived for so long, but I haven't tasted the Devil Saint's primordial spirit. Tianyang chuckled and stretched out his right hand. He forcibly extracted Yin Shi's devil soul from Jiang Shuling's soul sea. The Tianshao sword instantly bloomed with rays of light, as if a primitive giant beast opened its mouth. Chapter 1280. A powerful light flashed and swallowed Yin Shi's demonic soul. The heavenly sword released a terrifying devouring power as if it was going to crush Yin Shi's demonic soul and devour it completely. Ah! She immediately let out an extremely shrill scream when she sensed the danger of death. He had never imagined that Tian Yang's control over the power of his saint stage primordial spirit was so strong that he could command the ice essence secret technique as if it were his own arm. Just now, he was so close. Jiang Shuiling's primordial spirit was about to be frozen. However, Shi could only roar and even began to beg for mercy. Let me go. Even if you devour me, it's useless. You're a human and I'm a demon. We can't communicate with each other. However, there are countless treasures of the demon saint in my mind. There are also countless saint martial arts that are more than enough for you to cultivate. Don't you want the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance? I have a lot of inheritances that are more powerful than the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance. As long as you let me go, we can talk about anything. Shi screamed crazily. Everyone was moved when they heard that. Even the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance could not be compared to it. With such an offer, there were probably not many people present who would reject it. However, Tianyang smiled faintly. Wouldn't it be easier to devour you and search your soul? In the next moment, the devouring power of the heavenly sword exploded. Damn it! Even if I can't defeat you, you won't have it easy. Shi went crazy when he saw that. When he was alive, he was comparable to a saint martial artist. How could he be humiliated by Tianyang like this? In an instant, beams of flickering light shot out from Shi's body, shooting toward the heavenly sun. However, Tianyang was not hurt at all because Shi wanted to self-detonate. You're already in my hands and you still want to self-detonate? Tianyang smiled faintly. It was as if this peak saint realm expert of the devil race was nothing in his eyes. The heavenly sword stabbed out. Suddenly, Shi's demonic soul origin, which was in a frenzy, trembled. Shi's face was filled with disbelief. The self-destruction of the demons. How could it be stopped? Could it be? Shi's expression changed drastically. Just as she was about to say something, a terrifying loud sound was heard. The heavenly sword had completely swallowed Shi. Because of the heavenly sword, Tianyang didn't hear Shi's roar. Instead, he smiled faintly and took a step forward. They arrived at the space. Looking at the huge block of ice and Shi's body, Yi Qingyu felt a chill run down her spine. A satisfied smile appeared on Tianyang's face. The demonic soul of a peak saint realm great devil saint coupled with a complete physical body should be able to evolve the Tianshao sword once more. In the next moment, Tianyang slashed with his sword. The ice, which had been weakened by Shi's efforts for hundreds of thousands of years, couldn't bear it anymore and shattered. Sensing the aura of a human, the devil saint's body exploded and he swung his giant fist at Tianyang. Shi was a fiery demon. After cultivating to the devil saint realm, her body was extremely terrifying. Her punch could even shatter the space. However, without the demonic soul's command, no matter how strong her body was, she was just a wild beast. Tianyang executed the vast expanse 9 changes and easily dodged the attacks from the devil saint's body. At the same time, the heavenly sword unleashed its power. A terrifyingly powerful devouring power burst out from the heavenly sword and rushed towards the holy devil saint. In an instant, the devil saint's body stopped moving. It turned into endless demonic qi and rushed into the heavenly sword. The demonic qi was as vast as the sea and as surging as the river. It was directly absorbed by the heavenly sword. A light suddenly flashed in the depths of Tianyang's eyes. Shi was indeed at the peak of the saint realm. Even the Northern Frost Dragon King had to seal her. The majestic energy reached the limit of the heavenly sword in an instant. Everyone, leave immediately. Otherwise, my sword has no eyes. Heavenly Sun spoke, his voice carrying with it a surging pressure. Then, the space that was sealed by Shi tore open and led to the outside world. Everyone hurriedly escaped. After all, Tianyang had just unleashed the power of a martial monarch and killed the primordial spirit of the devil saint. Who would dare to go against such power? As for Hai Yuanxiong and Jiang Shuiling, they looked at the inheritance space with complicated expressions. The thought of catching up to the heavenly sun that had arisen in his heart was also quietly extinguished. In an instant, only Tianyang was left in the space. Tianyang also let go of the suppression on the heavenly sword and allowed it to break through. Boom! A loud sound was heard. All the demonic chi left behind by the devil saint's body was devoured by the heavenly sword. On the heavenly sword, there were streaks of 9-colored xinguang. At the same time, there were streaks of 9 destruction golden lightning circling around it. This time, it was different from the last time when he stepped into the divine grade from the heaven-class martial soul. Instead, the endless 9-colored xinguang contained in the heavenly sword surged into Tianyang's body. Tianyang's body underwent an unprecedented cleansing. All the impurities were expelled from his body, forming a layer of black smelly mud on the surface of his body. In the next moment, it was shattered by streaks of 9 destruction golden lightning. Tianyang suddenly felt the true yuan in his body churning wildly. It seemed that, under the stimulation of the 9-colored xinguang, he was about to break through to the saint realm. Damn it! Tianyang's expression changed. He hurriedly used the divine desolate heaven's spiritual art to forcefully suppress the boiling true yuan. He had only completed one of the 3 paths to become a saint. If he broke through now, it would only be the 8th saint path. It was far from the 9 saint paths, the ultimate path. It took Tianyang several hours to suppress the true yuan that constantly wanted to step into the saint realm. He heaved a sigh of relief. However, the secret of the heavenly sword is not small. When he was in the Tianshao Great World, the heavenly sword had repeatedly attracted the 9-colored xinguang, allowing Tianyang's foundation to reach perfection. Otherwise, Tianyang would not have been able to cultivate so many saint paths. In the Xiantian Great World, the heavenly sword still released countless 9-colored xinguang, allowing him to almost break through to the saint realm. Although he did not succeed in the end, Tianyang could feel it. His primordial spirit and physical body had been cleansed by the 9-colored xinguang and become much purer. Although there was no change in his realm, Tianyang could feel it. His combat strength had increased by more than a little. However, no matter how many secrets there are, this is still my martial soul. Tianyang smiled and checked the heavenly sword's current situation. Surging saint power surged within the heavenly sword. Mysterious runes flashed on the surface of the sword from time to time, releasing a mysterious and powerful aura. Now Tianyang could feel it. The heavenly sword had now stepped into the middle of the saint grade. Chapter 1281. Middle-level sacred grade. Tianyang could clearly feel that the power of the heavenly sword was more than 1 level stronger than before. The power of the sky-devouring secret skill was also much stronger. If Tianyang used all his strength, it was not impossible for him to directly leap from the peak of Wu Zun to a high-level sage to be. Of course, in that case, the demand for the spiritual energy of heaven and earth would be extremely huge. Even in an environment like the ancestral land of the dragon god, it would not last long. Then, let's see what is in this great demon saint's mind. Tianyang smiled slightly. In an instant, countless memories of Yin Shi appeared in Tianyang's mind. From Yin Shi's birth to her death, although most of her memories were fragmented and unreadable, the more useful the information was, the more Tianyang would pay attention to protecting it. Among them, there were countless martial arts techniques and cultivation methods. The subsequent cultivation methods of the ancient blood seal? At this moment, Tianyang's eyes suddenly widened, revealing a trace of shock. The ancient blood seal was an Archean magical power. In Archean times, gods and demons rose together, and there was a great war between heaven and earth. At that time, whether it was martial arts or other things, it was far from what it was now. A powerful magical power that could be passed down from Archean times to the present was naturally not comparable to ordinary holy martial arts. However, Tianyang had very few Archean magical powers, only the 9 steps of death that came with the immortal bloodline, the immortal eyes that he obtained from the mysterious white bones, and the ancient blood seal could be seen. The 9 steps of death and the immortal eyes were supported by the immortal bloodline. Even if Tianyang cultivated to the Holy Emperor realm, he would not be outdated. However, the ancient blood seal was getting worse and worse. Now, he had obtained the subsequent cultivation methods of the ancient blood seal from Yinshi's mind. How could Tianyang not be surprised? Moreover, not only the 2nd level, but the 1st level to the 5th level. Although Su Mo's bloodline level is not low, he is only in the reaching heaven realm. Yet, he can obtain the 1st level of the ancient blood seal. Although Yinshi is not from the blood demon clan, she is at least at the peak of the holy realm. It is good that she has the 5th level of the ancient blood seal. Tianyang smiled slightly, but there was still a lingering fear in his heart. Fortunately, the Yinshi who was fighting Heavenly Sun was only a devil soul that Yinshi had escaped from after hundreds of thousands of years of hard work. Otherwise, even if Tianyang did not use of the Heavenly Sword's 2nd martial soul talent, he might not be able to defeat her. A soul origin saint would only have the combat strength of a saint. Within the Snow Sky Fox race, there was only one saint that had been defeated. Furthermore, it was under the circumstances where the other party had underestimated the enemy. However, this guy was already extremely weak after being sealed by the Northern Frost Dragon King. It's already impressive that he was able to escape with just one of his demonic souls. Tianyang chuckled. Then, he learned from Yinshi's memories that even if Yinshi had the 5 levels of cultivation method, she had only reached the peak of the 3rd level. After all, it was not easy to cultivate the Archean magical powers. However, I have a lot of time. As long as I cultivate the ancient blood seal to the 3rd level, I will have one more trump card in the Holy Realm. Tianyang smiled slightly. For him, the more trump cards he had, the better. Tianyang had only seen the sword technique before. Everything else was only at the heaven level. After all, he had only been in the Xiantian Great World for a few years and had not had the opportunity to obtain more powerful martial arts technique. Now, the Dragon King's unparalleled fist technique, the ice secret skill, and the ancient blood seal made up for Tianyang's shortcomings in other aspects. There are more? In addition to the ancient blood seal, Tianyang also found many powerful cultivation techniques and martial arts technique. However, most of them were cultivated by the demon clan and were not very useful to him. To Tianyang's surprise, there was a human clan cultivation technique in Yinshi's memory. King Kong Body Refining Holy Technique. Tianyang looked at the 6 golden characters of the Xiantian Great World with a hint of surprise. It's a body refining holy technique from the Xiantian Great World? In the next moment, Tianyang carefully read through it. The more he read, the more surprised Tianyang was. The King Kong Body Refining Holy Technique came from the Xiantian Great World. It was a huge force in the blessed land of the West, the King Kong Prajna Temple. Moreover, it was an inherited martial arts technique from the King Kong Prajna Temple. For some reason, it had fallen into Yinshi's hands and benefited Tianyang. I didn't expect it to be a holy technique from the King Kong Prajna Temple. Tianyang's eyes shone and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He had a basic understanding of the forces in the Xiantian Great World. He also had a certain understanding of the blessed land of the West among the 4 great divine lands. The King Kong Prajna Temple was an overlord of the blessed land of the West and was famous for its body refining holy technique. The King Kong Body Refining Holy Technique was the strongest holy technique of the King Kong Prajna Temple. It's said that the King Kong Body Refining Holy Technique was created by someone above the Holy Emperor realm. Even a saint can cultivate it. Moreover, It doesn't conflict with the nine-tempered dragon body. The nine-tempered dragon body, refining holy technique, refined the body from the aspect of the dragon body. The King Kong body, refining holy technique, didn't care about the physique and purely refined the body. Since Tianyang had obtained the King Kong body refining holy technique, it was equivalent to increasing the possibility of his physical body becoming a saint. However, it seems that the Northern Frost Dragon King really did leave behind an inheritance? After memorizing the King Kong body refining holy technique, Tianyang looked around. He had taken care of Inshi's memories, but he hadn't taken care of the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance. The weapon spirit of the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance had been taken over by Inshi. After hundreds of thousands of years, it had turned into ashes. Tianyang could only feel helpless about it. Although he didn't know what happened to the weapon spirit, it had died in the hands of a sealed demon saint. No matter how he looked at it, it was very pitiful. Tianyang didn't have the weapon spirit to guide him now. He could only search the inheritance space alone. Could it be under the solid ice? Although Inshi was lying most of the time, there was one thing that she didn't lie about. The Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance had a lot to do with killing the demon saint. In that case, the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance might be under the solid ice. Tianyang's body flashed and he instantly arrived under the solid ice where Inshi was sealed. Immediately, he felt waves of spatial fluctuations. There is indeed. Tianyang was delighted. In the next moment, he used the power of the Saint Stage Primordial Spirit to test it out. In the next moment, he used the Ice Soul Secret Technique. The spatial fluctuations stopped immediately. Then, a huge spatial array appeared. Tianyang could feel that there was a huge space within the array. I didn't expect the Northern Frost Dragon King to be so skilled in the Space Dao and Array Dao. Tianyang observed for a long time. With his current Saint Stage Array Dao cultivation, it was extremely difficult for him to set up such a powerful array. Moreover, the array was integrated with the Space Dao. As expected of a great saint of the dragon tribe, Tianyang stretched out his hand and took out a drop of blood essence from the spatial array. The Northern Frost Dragon King's blood essence. Tianyang used the power of his primordial spirit to check it carefully. When he didn't find any danger, he smiled and ignited the true flames of destruction. He swallowed the Northern Frost Dragon King's blood essence in one gulp. He refined it immediately. At the same time, outside the Northern Frost Dragon King's remains, a man and a woman were looking down at the entire palace with indifference. He defeated 3 mid-level half-saints with one strike. He even defeated Hai Yuanqiong and Jiang Shuling. This Tianyang is quite strong. However, since he has offended the Xianyuan family, he will definitely die. Chapter 1282. Terrifying dragon aura surged around Tianyang's body. In Tianyang's dantian, the drop of blood essence that belonged to the Northern Frost Dragon King was shrinking rapidly under the divine desolate sky spirit arts refinement. Perhaps because it had been corroded by demonic aura for many years, Tianyang had used the heavenly sword to devour all the demonic aura in the Northern Frost Dragon King's blood essence. However, Tianyang didn't manage to obtain anything from the drop of blood essence. All he got was the power of a Dragon King's bloodline. Poor Northern Frost Dragon King, a great sage of the dragon race, was tricked by a demon sage that he had sealed. He did not even leave behind his inheritance. Tianyang sighed. He felt that it was a pity that the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance had been lost. The Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance was definitely much stronger than the 7 martial skills and secret techniques in the inheritance crystal. However, it was destroyed by Inshi. Tianyang naturally felt that it was a pity. Of course, he wasn't too sad. After all, although he had lost the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance, Tianyang had dug out the primordial blood seal and the Vajra body tempering sacred technique from Inshi's memories. These two were sage emperor-level inheritances. If he had to choose between them, Tianyang would rather choose the immemorial blood seal and Vajra body tempering sacred technique. Of course, if the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance was still there, Tianyang would naturally want both. Devour. Tianyang circulated the divine desolate sky spirit art. Streams of devouring power were released from the embryonic form of the Dragon Emperor's body, devouring the drop of blood essence. Unlike Qi Yingtian, who had to spend a few days to devour the blood essence, Tianyang was very experienced in devouring blood essence. At this moment, he could do it with ease. In just a few hours, all of the Northern Frost Dragon King's bloodline essence had been absorbed into the Dragon Emperor's body. The Dragon Emperor's body was getting closer and closer to completion. As long as Tianyang cultivated the Dragon Emperor's body, he would have truly stepped into the realm of physical establishing sage. Now, I should be half a step away from physical establishing sage. Sensing the surging power of the embryonic form of the Dragon Emperor, Tianyang smiled and clenched his fist. Within the inheritance space, cracks began to appear in the extremely sturdy space as a result of this clenching motion. Then, it's time to leave. Tianyang's figure flashed and disappeared from this space. Although I have no use for these 7 inheritance crystals, they are good supplements for Yuhan's martial skills. Tianyang glanced at the inheritance stone wall again. With a wave of his hand, the 7 inheritance crystals embedded in the center of the inheritance stone wall fell into Tianyang's hand. If one had to name them, it could be said that they were the Northern Frost Dragon King's legacies. It was just that it was a little shabby. After that, Tianyang's body flashed and he returned to the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. There were still many cultivators searching for treasures in the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. When they saw Tianyang appear, they were scared out of their wits and hurriedly ran away. However, Tianyang did not mind. Before Hai Yuanxiong opened the Northern Frost Dragon King's inheritance, Tianyang had already searched the entire Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. He had already obtained all the useful items. Tianyang could not be bothered to fight with a bunch of beginner and intermediate half-saints for the remaining items. Tianyang, you're finally willing to come out? Just as Tianyang stepped out of the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins, a thunderous roar suddenly rang out. Following that, a majestic and terrifying aura violently descended on Tianyang's body. Tianyang's expression did not change. He snorted coldly and activated the Divine Wilderness Heaven's spiritual art. The aura suppressing Tianyang instantly exploded. At the same time, a powerful attack also shot towards the source of the aura. After seeing me, the Saint Xianyuan, you actually did not kneel down and commit suicide. Instead, you attacked me? Who gave you the guts? A thunderous roar suddenly came from above, carrying with it an unquestionable aura. The Divine Wilderness Heaven's spiritual art's instinctive counterattack was also casually wiped out by the source of the aura. The powerful aura of a peak half-saint filled the air. Seeing this, countless beginner and intermediate half-saints who were trying to enter the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins to search for treasures were terrified and fled. Tianyang's expression did not change as he raised his head. Above him, a man and a woman stood in the air, looking at Tianyang with indifference as if they were looking at an ant. The man was dressed in a luxurious white robe with golden embellishments. The woman was beautiful, but her gaze was cold. The roar from before had also come from the man. The Saint Xianyuan? Hearing this, Tianyang smiled slightly. This time, it's finally the true genius of the Xianyuan family and not that trash Xianyuan Kong? How dare you? How dare you speak so rudely in front of the Saint Xianyuan? At this moment, a mid-level half-saint spoke coldly. Although I don't know who you are, the Saint Xianyuan is the most powerful person in the ancestral divine Dragonland. How dare you speak to him like that? Quickly kneel down and beg for mercy, said the mid-level half-saint arrogantly. Although he did not know how powerful Tianyang was, He knew how powerful the Saint Xianyuan was. It was not easy to meet Tianyang, who dared to disrespect the Saint Xianyuan. This mid-level half-saint naturally had to use all his strength to seize this opportunity to curry favor with the Saint Xianyuan. "Who are you?" Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. "Who is this guy? How dare you?" Seeing Tianyang looking at him, the mid-level half-saint snorted coldly. "You don't kneel in front of the Saint Xianyuan immediately. Are you trying to betray the human race? Since when did I need an outsider to interfere in the grudge between me and Tianyang?" At this moment, the Saint Xianyuan in the sky spoke indifferently. He casually pointed a finger. A bolt of lightning shot out, and without giving the mid-level half-saint half a second to react, it directly pierced through his head. In an instant, his soul dissipated. The people of the Xianyuan family are indeed overbearing. Hearing this, Tianyang's face revealed a trace of surprise. Then, he laughed. "Are you that impatient to find someone to accompany you in death? Die with me." The Saint Xianyuan snorted coldly. "It seems like you are indeed as sharp-tongued as Tianhao. However, being sharp-tongued will not save your life." In the next moment, the Saint Xuanyuan's figure suddenly appeared in front of Tianyang. He directly punched at Tianyang. "To be able to make me personally attack, you should be proud even if you fall into the netherworld." This punch was filled with murderous intent. The terrifying aura of a peak half-saint burst out and swept across the entire ice field. The space trembled and the solid ice shattered. It was only the release of a wisp of aura, but it caused a huge change in the surroundings. The strongest prodigy of the Xianyuan family was called the Saint. This generation's Saint Xianyuan, Xianyuan Xian, was a peak half-saint with 3 sacred paths and was close to 4 sacred paths. He was said to be an invincible outlawed sky pride. There had never been anyone who could survive under his fist. "If you let me attack, you won't be able to reach the netherworld." Tianyang smiled faintly and punched out. Dragon power surged. Chapter 1283. Violent and terrifying energy ripples spread wildly in all directions. It was as if countless boulders had been thrown into a quiet lake. The entire space was disturbed by the collision between the two. You can block my punch?" Looking at the motionless Tianyang in front of him, the Xianyuan Holy Sun was surprised. As the Xianyuan Holy Sun, he was invincible in the world. No one below the sage stage could be his match. Above the sage stage, he could also fight against a great sage. People called him an outlawed sky pride. However, this bastard from the lower realm was able to block his punch? The Xianyuan Holy Sun was slightly surprised, but that was it. "You're quite capable, bastard. However, this is as far as you can go." The Xianyuan Holy Sun snorted and instantly retreated. Then, the true core of a peak half-sage surged. At the same time, terrifying and powerful energy waves were released from the Xianyuan Holy Sun's body. It was as if he could suppress the entire world. With the Xianyuan Holy Sun as the center, an unparalleled pressure spread in all directions. It was as if an emperor had descended between heaven and earth. Emperor Xuanyuan's physique. The Xianyuan Holy Sun roared. In an instant, mysterious runes appeared on his body. The Xianyuan Holy Sun's aura had also surpassed the limit of a peak half-sage and stepped into the sage stage. Emperor Xuanyuan's physique? Seeing this, Tianyang was stunned. He had never heard of this physique. However, just by looking at the Xianyuan Holy Sun's powerful aura, he could deduce it. This Emperor Xuanyuan's physique was definitely not weak. Originally, I didn't need to use the Emperor Xuanyuan's physique to kill you easily. However, to show my respect to the Heavenly Lady, I still need to activate this Emperor Xuanyuan's physique. Now that I've activated the Emperor Xuanyuan's physique, it's time for you to die. The Xianyuan Holy Sun snorted and disappeared instantly. The next moment, a punch that was many times more powerful than before blasted toward Tianyang's face. Tianyang's expression did not change. He activated the fledgling stage of the Dragon Emperor's physique and released a terrifying and vast dragon energy. The next moment, he blocked with a punch. Boom! With a loud bang, Tianyang was blasted dozens of meters away. His footprints left a long mark on the ice. However, the Holy Sun Xuanyuan's expression did not change. With a flash, he attacked again. Die for me! Holy Sun Xuanyuan teleported in front of Tianyang again, and slammed his palm down on Tianyang's head. If Holy Sun Xuanyuan had hit him with this palm strike, any other peak half-saint would have died as well. However, Tianyang's expression did not change in the slightest. A slight smile appeared on his face. The embryonic form of the Dragon Emperor physique was completely unleashed. His dragon might was unparalleled. This time, Tianyang did not suppress his dragon power at all. He allowed his terrifying physical strength to fuse with the dragon power and unleashed the Dragon King's unparalleled fist. Boom! When the fist and the palm collided, a series of loud bangs erupted. The Holy Sun Xuanyuan's expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly activated his movement technique. His figure disappeared from where he stood, dodging Tianyang's terrifying dragon force attack. However, Tianyang used the Heavenly Expanse 9 changes and disappeared instantly. He followed closely behind the Holy Sun Xuanyuan and punched him again. This time, the Holy Sun Xuanyuan was pushed back. You were hiding your strength earlier. The Holy Sun Xuanyuan's expression changed slightly, and he shouted angrily. With the Holy Sun Xuanyuan's cultivation, how could he not see that Tianyang had not used his full strength earlier? Otherwise, he would not have been pushed back. His face immediately revealed traces of fury. Facing the invincible Holy Sun Xuanyuan, Tianyang dared not to use his full strength immediately. This was simply contempt for him. Xuanyuan Battle Dragon Art. In an instant, the Holy Sun Xuanyuan activated his cultivation technique, and his aura rose to the peak. He roared angrily and threw a deadly punch at Tianyang. However, Tianyang's expression did not change. He smiled calmly and said, Holy Sun Xuanyuan? With this little strength, not bad to use you to practice my fist technique. In the next moment, the 9 steps of death burst out. The immortal bloodline burst out. The 9 steps overlapped and the deathly aura surrounded Tianyang. Combined with the unparalleled fist strength of the half-step to physical sanctification realm, he collided with the Holy Sun Xuanyuan again. A loud explosion occurred. The Holy Sun Xuanyuan's expression changed immediately. Why was the strength of this punch so much stronger than before? The Holy Sun Xuanyuan's fist print became weaker and weaker, as if it was being crushed. Damn it! Mysterious runes appeared on the surface of the Holy Sun Xuanyuan's body and merged into his fist. Suddenly, the fist print shone brightly. However, the Holy Sun Xuanyuan did not send Tianyang flying as he had expected. On the contrary, the deathly aura around Tianyang roared, and the strength of his fist increased again, causing him to take a few steps back. What kind of martial technique is that? The Holy Sun Xuanyuan opened his eyes wide and was shocked. Although the fist technique that Tianyang had thrown out earlier was powerful, it was definitely not as powerful as this. The deathly aura had neutralized the power of the Holy Sun Xuanyuan Emperor physique. The martial technique that will kill you. Tianyang smiled and released all the strength of his fist, sending the Holy Sun Xuanyuan flying. Bastard! The Holy Sun Xuanyuan's face darkened instantly. I have not used my full strength yet, and you are already so arrogant. Now I will show you the true power of the Holy Sun Xuanyuan Emperor physique. The Holy Sun Xuanyuan activated his imperial physique, and mysterious runes appeared in his hands. Then a long sword was formed. The moment the long sword was formed, the surrounding heaven and earth trembled. It was as if heaven and earth could not contain the long sword at all. Holy Sun Xuanyuan sword. The Holy Sun Xianyuan roared. In the next moment, he used a strange movement technique and slashed at Tianyang. 3 Sacred Tao. The Sacred Realm Sword Tao, Space Tao, and Destruction Tao were all released instantly. Holy Sun Dragon Slaying Sword. Vaguely, a sorrowful cry of the dragon tribe could be heard. A ferocious look flashed across the Holy Sun Xuanyuan's eyes as he slashed down with his sword. Tianyang was just a bastard. How dare he make him retreat? If Tianyang did not die today, his invincible reputation would definitely be challenged. The Holy Sun Xianyuan was extremely arrogant and powerful. He would not allow anything to happen that would tarnish his reputation. A ray of sword light shattered the space and charged toward Tianyang. Holy Sun Dragon Slaying Sword? Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. Then, the corner of his mouth curled into a smile. The immortal fire burned in his eyes. Do you really think that you are invincible just because you have a *T imperial physique? From the beginning, Tianyang had never been serious. Even if the person in front of him was the Holy Sun Xianyuan, who was known as the #1 outlawed sky pride of the human race below the sacred realm, he did not care. He was just using him to practice his martial arts. However, the Holy Sun Dragon Slaying Sword and the Sacred Realm Sword Tao had angered Tianyang, because they were too weak. The sword is not for show. In the next moment, the Great Void Sword Embryo appeared. Heavenly Sword, Martial Soul Talent, Devouring Heaven. Tianyang's aura stepped into the peak of the intermediate half-saint level in an instant. In the next moment, he slashed with his sword. Tianyang's Sacred Realm Sword Tao was released at this moment. Chapter 1284. Sword Cleaving 9 Barons. It represented Tianyang's highest level of Saint Realm Sword Principle. As Tianyang's sword principle became more refined, the power of Sword Cleaving 9 Barons would naturally become stronger as well. In just an instant, a dazzling sword light shot out from the Great Void Sword Embryo and slashed toward Xianyuan Holy Sun. How dare an ant be so arrogant? Xianyuan Holy Sun's face showed a hint of arrogance when he saw this. The Xianyuan sword with mysterious patterns in his hand bloomed with Shenguang. The Xianyuan Dragon Slaying Sword instantly shone brightly and collided with Sword Cleaving 9 Barons. Xianyuan Holy Sun's Saint Realm Sword Principle is said to be close to the Supreme Saint Realm. If Xianyuan Holy Sun didn't try to enter the Saint Realm with the unprecedented 4 sacred paths, he would have entered the Saint Realm long ago. At this moment, Xianyuan Holy Daughter, who had been watching from the side, spoke indifferently. Her eyes were full of disdain for Tianyang. They were the strongest geniuses of the Xianyuan family. Why would they care about a guy from an unknown world who had half of the Xianyuan family's bloodline? They had been using the Xianyuan family's best resources since they were young, the most useful elixirs of the Xianyuan Great World. Even their opponents were carefully arranged by the Xianyuan family to train them. How could a bastard who grew up in a rubbish world compare to them? Boom! With a terrifying loud sound, the Sword Cleaving 9 Barons was completely released with the brilliance of Saint Realm Sword Principle. Xianyuan Holy Sun's Saint Realm Sword Principle cultivation is not bad. Sensing the feedback of Sword Cleaving 9 Barons, Tianyang smiled slightly. In the next moment, True Yuan surged on the Great Void Sword Embryo in his hand. In the next moment, the Sword Cleaving 9 Barons exploded with destructive power and slashed the Xianyuan Dragon Slaying Sword to pieces. Boom! The sword light that was filled with the power of Emperor Xuanyuan's body was not worth mentioning in front of Tianyang's Saint Realm Sword Principle, which had already entered the Supreme Saint Realm. In just an instant, Xianyuan Holy Sun's sword attack was broken. How is this possible? Xianyuan Holy Sun's expression changed when he saw this. The Xianyuan sword in his hand shone brightly and slaying Sword Cleaving 9 Barons. Break! The Xianyuan sword blossomed with Shenguang, and the power of the Xianyuan Emperor physique circulated within it. At the same time, the powerful true essence that had been raised to the saint realm by the Xianyuan emperor physique also poured into it. In just an instant, after breaking through the sword of 9 desolation, it clashed with the Xianyuan sword again. Why is this guy's sword technique so powerful? It was not until he personally came into contact with the sword cleaving 9 desolations that Holy Sun Xianyuan realized how powerful Tianyang was. Even with the Emperor Xuanyuan's physique at full power and the Xianyuan battle dragon art at full power, he could barely block the sword-breaking 9 desolations' roar. Could it be his saint stage sword Dao? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. How can there be someone below the sage stage whose sword Dao cultivation is stronger than mine? The Holy Sun Xianyuan roared, and the light on the Xianyuan sword exploded. However, Tianyang smiled and flicked his finger, sending a strand of true yuan into the sword light. This strand of true yuan was the last straw that broke the camel's back. It allowed the sword-breaking 9 desolations to completely shatter the Holy Sun Xuanyuan's defense. Even the Xianyuan sword was sent flying by the sword-breaking 9 desolations. As for the Holy Sun Xianyuan, he was also heavily hit by the sword-breaking 9 desolations. Just as the Holy Sun Xuanyuan's Xianyuan sword was sent flying, the Emperor Xuanyuan's physique activated automatically. Lines of mysterious runes formed an extremely strong defense on the surface of the Holy Sun Xuanyuan's body, protecting him firmly within it. Although the sword-breaking 9 desolations hit the Holy Sun Xianyuan, it did not kill him immediately. Most of the power was absorbed by the mysterious runes. The remaining power only sent the Holy Sun Xianyuan flying, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. This Emperor Xuanyuan's physique is still something. Seeing this, the corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up slightly. Although the Emperor Xuanyuan's physique was not as strong as the 9 nether saint body, it was not weak either. However, it had encountered Tianyang. Just as Tianyang was about to use the vast expanse 9 changes to pursue the Holy Sun Xianyuan, a dagger suddenly shot out from Tianyang's shadow. Dark stab. Unknowingly, the Xianyuan saintess had shadow melted into Tianyang's shadow. At the moment when Tianyang was most relaxed, she launched a fatal attack on Tianyang. From the beginning of the battle, the Xianyuan saintess had been accumulating her strength. Now that she saw the opportunity, she immediately struck. The Xianyuan saintess's shadow meld technique was indeed powerful. Even Tianyang did not realize that the Xianyuan saintess had appeared behind him. However, the dagger pierced through the space, but it could not pierce through Tianyang's body. The sharp blade of the dagger scratched Tianyang's skin, but it only brought up some sparks. It was as if Tianyang's body was a material for a sacred weapon. This lower-grade sacred weapon dagger could not even break through his defense. At most, it could only pierce a hole in Tianyang's supreme-grade spiritual weapon. How is this possible? Seeing this, the Xianyuan saintess was dumbfounded. Her dark stab could even kill a saint. Why couldn't it pierce through Tianyang's physical defense? After all, most saints had not achieved the sanctified body. This chick's shadow meld technique is not bad. At this moment, Tianyang chuckled and immediately struck. However, the Xianyuan saintess's shadow meld technique was strange. Instantly, she left behind a genuine essence clone where she stood, while her real body fled in an instant. Tianyang could even defeat the Xianyuan saintess. How could he fight her, whose combat strength was even weaker than the Xianyuan saintess, in close combat? He was simply courting death. Tianyang directly crushed the neck of the genuine essence clone. He raised his eyebrows slightly in surprise. The Xianyuan saintess and holy son of the Xianyuan family were indeed not weak. Compared to Hai Yuanqiong, they were much stronger. "You hurt me!" At this moment, the Xianyuan saintess stared blankly at the blood in his hand that had just spurted out. How many years had it been since he last saw his own blood? The last time he saw it should have been 1,000 years ago. When he was sparring with an elder who had reached the peak of the half-saint realm, he failed to activate his secret technique and suffered a backlash. Now, in a real battle, he was sent flying and injured by a bastard that he had always looked down on. More than once. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! The Xianyuan Saintess roared crazily. At this moment, the Xianyuan Saintess appeared beside the Xianyuan Saintess with a gloomy expression. They had greatly underestimated Tianyang's strength. I'm afraid that Tianyang of the Snow Sky Fox clan has really defeated a saint before, the Xianyuan Saintess said. The Xianyuan Saintess was stunned. His expression changed instantly. His current combat strength was only able to fight a saint. It was already considered good if he had a 10% chance of winning. If Tianyang had really defeated a saint, he would have a 99% chance of losing if he fought him one-on-one. However, there is only one of him. There are two of us, the Xianyuan Saintess said. The Xianyuan Saintess said. The Xianyuan Saintess's expression suddenly turned bright. That's right. In that case, let's use that move. The Xianyuan Saintess smiled ferociously. Rays of light shone from the Xianyuan family in his hand. The dagger in the Xianyuan Saintess's hand suddenly elongated and turned into a long saber. Tianyang, your strength is indeed not bad, but with the blood of sin in your body, you still have to die. This move has killed a saint and battled a great saint. You should feel honored that I'm using it to kill you. The Xianyuan Saintess laughed maniacally. In the next moment, lines of mysterious formation runes appeared between the Xianyuan Saintess and the Xianyuan Saintess. Their true Yuan and Qi auras instantly rose. Their battle prowess also skyrocketed. Chapter 1285. Xianyuan Yin-Yang Sword Formation. The Xianyuan sage roared. In the next moment, his true Yuan aura increased exponentially. Even the Xianyuan sword in his hand was shrouded in layers of mysterious aura. Its power had increased significantly. It was as if the Xianyuan sage's power had merged with the Xianyuan emperor's body and strengthened each other. So this is the famous Xianyuan Yin-Yang sword formation? At this moment, Tianyang's brows twitched as he revealed a trace of surprise. The Xianyuan family's Xianyuan Yin-Yang sword formation was too famous. Tianyang was going to deal with the Xianyuan family in the future, so he had to investigate it thoroughly. The Xianyuan Yin-Yang sword formation required two different powers, one yin and one yang. Usually it was a man and a woman. Then, it would use a powerful formation passed down since ancient times and modified by countless Xianyuan family great sages and sage emperors to concentrate the power of yin and yang on one yang. Yin and yang countered each other, but they also reinforced each other. With the circulation of yin and yang, the Xianyuan sage's power had increased exponentially. Since you know that I'm the Xianyuan family's Xianyuan Yin-Yang sword formation, then you should commit suicide. The Xianyuan sage stood in the void and looked down at him coldly. Only now did he regain his confidence as the #1 human outlawed sky pride in the Xiantian great world. He and the Xianyuan sage had activated the Xianyuan Yin-Yang sword formation together. Even if a true great sage stood in front of them, they were confident that they could kill him. Moreover, Tianyang's cultivation base was only at the peak of Wu Zun. Commit suicide? Tianyang rubbed his chin and seemed to be thinking about it. I don't think that's a good idea. I think it would look better if you were killed by me. The Xianyuan sage was stunned. What nonsense is this Tianyang talking about? However, he soon realized what was going on. His eyes were filled with rage. You're courting death. This heavenly son actually dared to twist his words into telling him to commit suicide. You're going to die this time. Even if the dragon god descends, he won't be able to save your life. Xianyuan the holy sun roared and charged toward Tianyang with the Xianyuan sword in his hand. Seeing this, Tianyang's face turned slightly solemn. Although he was suppressing holy sun Xianyuan, in fact, Tianyang did not cause any substantial harm to holy sun Xianyuan. Now that the holy Sun Xuanyuan's strength had risen to that of a great sage, it would be much more difficult to kill him. Xianyuan Zhan Long. Saint Sun Xianyuan roared as his Saint Lord Realm true essence burned out. The Xianyuan sword in his hand shone with a peerless light as he slashed down. The powerful sword light that could split the sky and earth instantly tore a crack in space as it shot towards the sky sun. Tianyang smiled and activated the heaven-devouring secret skill to the maximum. Heaven and earth, mountains and rivers, endless dragon chi, everything was used by the heaven-devouring mystic technique. Tianyang's cultivation instantly stepped into the high level of the half-saint realm. He faced the Dragonslayer's sword and fused 5 sacred daos. 10,000 mammoth annihilation. He slashed out with his sword and collided with Xianyuan Zhan Long with a strong destructive force. Rumble! The entire world seemed to groan powerlessly. The moment Tianyang executed the 10,000 mammoth annihilation, he disappeared from the spot and appeared in front of Holy Sun Xianyuan. The Xianyuan Yin-Yang sword formation had a time limit. However, Tianyang had the endless spiritual sea and was always at his strongest. Yuan's spirit secret skill, God-piercing saber. It was as if a bayonet had stabbed into Holy Sun Xuanyuan's primordial spirit. Holy Sun Xianyuan instantly let out a heart-wrenching scream. At the same time, Tianyang slashed out with his sword. 6 sacred daos fused together. However, before Tianyang slashed out with his sword, Holy Sun Xianyuan immediately recovered his primordial spirit. His Emperor Xianyuan body released countless secret runes that turned into a shield of secret runes and blocked Tianyang's sword. The power of your primordial spirit. Holy Sun Xuanyuan's expression changed drastically as he stared at Tianyang. He finally knew why Tianyang could fight against a great sage in the Snow Sky Fox clan. The power of his primordial spirit had already stepped into the sacred realm. Tianyang, Holy Sun Xianyuan. However, so what if you're a Holy Sun Xianyuan? You'll still die in front of me. Holy Sun Xianyuan roared. The Xianyuan sword in his hand shone with rays of light as he slashed out again. The Sword Dao, Destruction Dao, and Space Dao of the Saint Realm were released at the same time. Moreover, it seemed that these 3 sacred daos had begun to fuse, increasing their power once again. This sword could kill a great sage. No wonder he's known as the strongest prodigy of the human race in the Xiantian Great World. This Holy Sun Xianyuan is indeed powerful. Tianyang had only seen the fusion of sacred daos on himself. Even geniuses like Hai Yuanxiong had not been able to do it. Holy Sun Xianyuan had actually managed to fuse 3 sacred daos when he was trying to break through to the 4 sacred daos. This showed that Holy Sun Xuanyuan's talent was unparalleled. If he continued to grow, it was almost certain that he would become a great sage and a holy emperor. However, before he grew, he met Tianyang. In terms of true essence, Tianyang was at an absolute disadvantage. Although high-level half-saints were strong, they were like ants in front of a great sage. However, in terms of sacred daos, Tianyang had the absolute advantage. In front of Tianyang's 7 sacred daos, the 3 sacred daos were not worth mentioning. 7 sacred daos, 10,000 destruction. Tianyang roared. His sword seemed to be able to break the world. Even the universe was trembling because of it. Under this sword, it seemed like everything would be destroyed. Boom! The fusion of 3 sacred daos was directly destroyed by Tianyang's strongest 10,000 destruction. So what if it could kill a great sage? Tianyang's sword was a true great sage's sword. This time, even the powerful defense of Emperor Xuanyuan's body could not withstand the horrifying attack of the 10,000 destruction. It was directly torn apart. The Holy Sun Xianyuan, who was defending himself, had his left arm chopped off. Blood splattered everywhere. Ah! The Holy Sun Xianyuan roared instantly. Looking at his empty left arm, he went completely crazy. My arm! In the next moment, the holy son Xuanyuan's body disappeared from the spot. The Xianyuan sword madly slashed out, wanting to kill Tianyang. The holy daughter Xuanyuan's face was also filled with shock from the bottom of her heart. The Xianyuan yin-yang sword formation had been activated. Tianyang could still chop off one of the holy son Xuanyuan's arms. "You despicable bastard! How dare you chop off one of my arms? I want you dead! I want you dead!" The holy son Xianyuan roared crazily. In the next moment, a demonic blood flame suddenly burned on his body. "No!" Seeing this, the holy daughter Xianyuan hurriedly shouted. The holy son Xianyuan had actually burned his Xianyuan bloodline. Once it was burned, it would take at least 3 years for it to recover. If it was burned too much, it would probably not recover for the rest of its life. Go to hell. The holy son Xianyuan could not hear anything at all at this moment. An extremely twisted smile appeared on his face. The Xianyuan family sword in his hand was also burning with blood flame. At this moment, the holy son Xianyuan could even fight against a supreme saint. "Why do you want to die?" Seeing this, Tianyang shook his head. The great void sword embryo in his hand released rays of white light. At this moment, the holy son Xianyuan suddenly disappeared. An extremely horrifying sword slashed toward Tianyang. Xianyuan, destroy. An extremely deep black color hovered above the Xianyuan sword. Under this sword, the holy son Xianyuan sword embryo must die. The great void sword embryo in Tianyang's hand was completely covered by the white light. In the depths of his eyes the immortal fire burned. Tianyuan sword, the talent of the second martial soul. Tianyuan. One sword. Chapter 1286. 1/ Heaven and earth lost their color. It was as if the sun and moon had lost their light, the universe had turned upside down, and the heavens had shattered. It was only 1/, but it made the blood-soaked holy son Xianyuan tremble all over. It was as if he had felt some kind of terrifying pressure. Emperor Xuanyuan's body was trembling violently as if it had encountered a primordial beast. It was trembling in fear. In an instant, the powerful Emperor Xuanyuan's body suddenly collapsed, and the Emperor Xianyuan sword condensed by the Emperor Xuanyuan's body also turned into dust at this moment. "Impossible! Impossible!" The holy son Xianyuan roared crazily. Emperor Xuanyuan's body was the world's supreme sage body. How could it be shattered by a single slash? This sword had yet to touch him, the holy son Xianyuan. "Die! Ah!" The holy son Xianyuan roared angrily and abandoned the Emperor Xianyuan sword. He charged toward the heavenly sword with his physical strength. However, after the slash, Tianyang's sky-devouring secret technique automatically disappeared. His cultivation level fell from an advanced half-saint to the peak Wu Zun. Now, he could only rely on the heavenly sword that he had already slashed out. However, Tianyang had absolute confidence in the heavenly sword. It would not be a problem to kill the insignificant holy son Xianyuan. Holy fist of Xianyuan! The holy son Xianyuan roared angrily. Blood flames burned on his fist as he punched the terrifying sword light. However, what shattered was not the heavenly sword's sword light as the holy son Xianyuan thought. Instead, the holy son Xuanyuan's fist was crushed before it could even touch the heavenly sword. The holy son Xianyuan opened his mouth, as if he was about to scream. However, in the next moment, the sword light swallowed the holy son Xuanyuan's entire body. The Emperor Xuanyuan's body, the Emperor Xuanyuan's bloodline, the invincible first outlawed sky pride of the human race, all of it had completely disappeared at this moment. In the face of the heavenly sword, all of them were vulnerable. There was not even a drop of blood falling from the sky. Everything was completely shattered by the heavenly sword's peerless power. Only when the essence spirit sensed the holy son Xuanyuan's aura, which had disappeared in an instant, did everyone know the final result of this battle. He was the strongest prodigy of the Xianyuan clan, a half-saint at the peak of the four sacred paths, the #1 outlawed sky pride of the human race, and one of the strongest prodigies of the Black Heavens world. Xianyuan Xian, the holy son of Xianyuan. Fallen. How is this possible? Below, Saintess Xianyuan was completely stunned. She collapsed to the ground. Her power had been completely absorbed by the Xianyuan yin-yang sword formation and injected into Sun Xuanyuan's body. Now that holy Sun Xianyuan was dead, she had lost all her combat strength. Although he could use his physical strength, Tian Yang's physical strength had been able to block her ultimate move, Dark Thorn. How could he not catch up to her? Around them, countless onlookers fell into a state of complete shock at this moment. There were countless people in the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins, and the holy Sun Xianyuan didn't try to hide his tracks. Therefore, many geniuses had followed Saint Xianyuan here. However, they did not expect to see such a scene. Holy Sun Xianyuan had been killed. It's changed. The Xiantian Great World is going to change. A high-level half-saint's expression changed drastically as he roared in his heart. Meanwhile, Hai Yuanqiong was silently watching Tianyang from the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. This guy is so strong that he can even kill Xianyuan Xian. If the holy Sun Xianyuan was in the top echelon of the Xiantian Great World's geniuses, then Hai Yuanqiong could only dominate the second echelon. Hai Yuanqiong had thought that Tianyang might be in the top echelon, but he was definitely not the strongest. However, Tianyang had killed the holy Sun Xianyuan, who had used the body of Emperor Xianyuan, the Xianyuan yin-yang sword formation, and even the bloodline ignition. Tianyang is the #1 genius in the world, Hai Yuanqiong exclaimed. This sentence was the final word. It slowly sounded around the battlefield. Regardless of whether they had heard of Tianyang's achievements in the Snow Skyfox clan, everyone was completely in awe of him. Tianyang, the #1 genius in the world. After killing the holy Sun Xianyuan, Tianyang frowned slightly and sighed. The power of the heavenly sword was too strong. When it killed the holy Sun Xianyuan, it also destroyed his primordial spirit, physical body, and even his interspatial bag. Now that Tianyang had killed the holy Sun Xianyuan, he had gained nothing. It's a loss. No, maybe it's not a loss. Tianyang had just sighed when he noticed the trembling holy daughter Xianyuan below him. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. In a flash, he appeared in front of the holy daughter Xianyuan. You? What are you doing? The holy daughter Xianyuan panicked when she saw the strange smile on Tianyang's face. She quickly retreated. The holy daughter Xianyuan was not a naive girl who grew up in a greenhouse. Naturally, she had seen countless battles of life and death. What the winner of a battle would do to the loser, one didn't even need to think about it to know. Moreover, Xian Qi Yin body? Tianyang raised his eyebrows and looked surprised as he sensed the information from the holy daughter Xianyuan. Xian Qi Yin body. It was one of the strongest body constitutions for practicing dark attribute cultivation skills. Although it was far from being comparable to Ling Yuhan's 9 Nether Saint body, the Xian Qi Yin body was considered strong in the Xiantian cosmos. The Xian Qi Yin body had a special function that the 9 Nether Saint body could not match. That was, it could be used as a cultivation vessel. No matter what body constitution it was, it could absorb the power of the Xian Qi Yin body during intercourse to promote the growth of one's cultivation. No wonder the holy Sun Xianyuan always has you by his side. You are the cultivation vessel that the Xianyuan family gave to the holy Sun Xianyuan. Tianyang chuckled. Upon hearing that, the holy daughter Xuanyuan's face, which was covered by the black veil, changed completely. She had not expected Tianyang to be able to see through the Xian Qi Yin body. Since you have the Xian Qi Yin body, I can't kill you casually. Tianyang muttered to himself. Then, a slight smile appeared on his face. What are you doing? As all the power in her body had been extracted, the holy daughter Xianyuan had no power to resist Tianyang. When she saw the change in Tianyang's face, she was terrified. The Xian Qi Yin body had to be used at its most mature stage to bring out its full potential. Although the holy daughter Xianyuan was not mature yet, she already had a certain amount of power. The Xianyuan family had kept the holy daughter Xianyuan a virgin so that it would be easier for the holy son Xianyuan to absorb her power. However, Tianyang did not need to care about that. At that moment, the power of the primordial spirit gathered in Tianyang's hands and formed a mysterious seal. This seal was clearly the seal of a slave. Surrender or die. Chapter 1287. Submit or die. Tianyang smiled. His smile was bright and warm, as if he was talking to his partner. However, the murderous intent in his words sent chills down Xianyuan Saint's spine. Regardless of whether she had the Xianyuan Yin body or not, even if her Xianyuan Yin body had matured, Xianyuan Saintess felt that Tianyang would still kill her if she did not submit. You killed Xianyuan Saintess, and the Xianyuan family already hates you. If you enslave me as well, the Xianyuan family will definitely be furious. Whoosh. Tianyang flicked his finger, and a sharp sword light flashed past. Xianyuan Saintess's black veil was instantly cut open. A shallow wound slowly appeared on the left side of Xianyuan Saintess's face. I don't want to repeat what I said 3 times. Tianyang smiled gently. His smile was still warm, but his eyes were extremely cold. In the distance, Hai Yuanxiong was also dumbfounded. She did not expect Tianyang to kill Xianyuan Saintess. He even wanted to enslave the Xianyuan Saintess. Was he not afraid of angering the Xianyuan family? Countless cultivators in the surroundings were infuriated. Although the Xianyuan Saintess wore a black veil every time she appeared, she was still a saint. However, there were also countless cultivators who saw Xianyuan Saintess as a goddess in their hearts. However, Tianyang still demanded Xianyuan Saintess so crudely. He even attacked Xianyuan Saintess's face without mercy. Xianyuan Saintess trembled all over. She had never seen someone as decisive and heartless as Tianyang. In the end, Xianyuan Saintess could only submit. She lowered her head and took the slave mark. In an instant, the slave mark flowed into Xianyuan Saintess's body and was firmly engraved on her primordial spirit. Unless Tianyang removed it himself, even a supreme sage would only destroy Xianyuan Saintess's primordial spirit while destroying the slave mark. It was much better than a poison pill or an oath to the heavenly Tao. Greetings, Master. Under the control of the slave imprint, Saintess Xianyuan could not help but kneel down. Tears welled up in her eyes as she spoke in a low voice. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled slightly, as if the cold killing intent from before had never existed. Sure, what's your name? Xianyuan. Yun. Xianyuan Saintess Yun Xianyuan said. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded. Okay, I'll call you Xiaoyun from now on. Stay here and heal your wounds, Tianyang said. With the slave mark controlling him, Tianyang didn't care about Yun Xuanyuan's possible betrayal. At first glance, the slave mark looked similar to the slave mark in the Xiantian Great Cosmos. However, it was the most violent mark of a slave that Tianyang had found from the treasures of the Great Lord of Heaven and the memories of the fiery devil archdevil Yin Shi. As for the other slave imprints, if the master was killed in an instant, they might not be of much use. This slave mark, called the demon slave mark, would automatically activate its power and cause great pain to the slave as long as the slave showed a trace of killing intent towards the master. If the slave dared to attack the master, the demon slave mark would directly blow up the slave's primordial spirit. If the master died, the demon slave mark would directly blow up the slave's primordial spirit and kill him completely, just like how the slave attacked the master. After all, the demon race didn't care about whether the slave was human or not. It was perfect for Tianyang to use. Damn it! At this moment, someone finally roared and charged towards Tianyang. Tianyang killed the Xianyuan saint and enslaved Saintess Xianyuan. He must be exhausted. How dare he be so arrogant when he doesn't even know if he can use Wu Zun's original cultivation? Go to hell. The person who attacked was an advanced half-saint. His expression was extremely ferocious. Who was the Xianyuan saint? He was recognized as the #1 genius in the Xiantian Great World. Even if Tianyang was strong, it wouldn't be easy for him to kill the Xianyuan saint. Using the demon slave mark would also consume a large amount of primordial spirit power. With these two combined, it was unknown whether Tianyang could continue fighting. How could he block the attack of an advanced half-saint? As long as I kill Tianyang, his treasures will be mine. The Xianyuan saint will also be mine. As the high-level half-saint thought to himself, Tianyang slowly stopped forming seals with his hands. He had wanted to use the devouring heaven seal to restore his endless spiritual sea, which had almost been drained. He didn't expect someone to come to his death so soon. Go to hell. The advanced half-saint's expression was ferocious as he released his killing intent. His fist contained the true yuan of a peak advanced half-saint as he charged towards Tianyang. Yun Xianyuan, who hadn't entered a state of cultivation, suddenly looked up with a glimmer of hope in her beautiful eyes. If her master died, then she would be free. Tianyang, on the other hand, smiled slightly. He clenched his right fist and punched out without hesitation. Boom! In an instant, the advancing body of the high-level half-saint strangely came to a halt. Do you think that I won't be able to do anything after killing a peak half-saint? Tianyang chuckled. May I ask who gave you the confidence? Boom! In the next moment, the high-level half-saint who had attacked exploded like a bomb. His flesh and true yuan completely exploded. In the next moment, a devouring vortex formed above Tianyang's fist. It devoured everything of the advanced half-saint and turned them into Tianyang's energy to help Tianyang recover. A single punch had killed an advanced half-saint. The crowd, who had been eager to give it a try after seeing the advanced half-saint attack, fell silent as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over them. They finally realized that even though Tianyang had exhausted a lot of his energy, he was still not someone they could fight against. The only thing they could do was to kneel in front of such a terrifying existence. Seeing this, the hope in Yun Xuanyuan's eyes completely disappeared. Despair filled Yun Xuanyuan's heart. Tianyang smiled slightly when he saw this. This girl had been enslaved by him, so it was natural that she wanted him dead. Tianyang didn't care much about it. However, this could make this girl sober up a little. As for making Yun Xianyuan submit completely, this was a little difficult. However, there was plenty of time in the future. Tianyang had plenty of time to properly educate the Xianyuan holy lady. Tianyang looked around and frowned slightly. The battle between him and the holy son Xianyuan had been too earth-shattering. As a result, the ice field within a radius of 10,000 miles had been shattered. Even the relics left behind by the Northern Frost Dragon King had been left with sword mark. Even a part of the forest further away had been destroyed. The most fatal thing was the spiritual energy of heaven and earth here. It had been completely absorbed by the two of them in the battle. This is not a place to heal. Let's go. Tianyang muttered to himself. Then, he grabbed the holy lady Xianyuan like he was grabbing a chicken. He executed the heavenly expanse 9 changes and disappeared from everyone's sight. On the spot,